Yo, it's your boy Ryan, Northwest Sports Fanatics, back at you with a new video. Today is Sunday, November 23rd, 2025, with your boy Ryan and the Northwest Sports Fanatics. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. Smash that like button either now or on your way out. Donate to your boy if you can. Cash App, $ ORIONNWSF, or the YouTube Super Chat right here. We got Sunday Night Football, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Los Angeles Rams. Kickoff is going to be here in roughly 5 minutes. So let's cue up the music, take a look at the thumb, and let's get settled in for some Sunday Night Football. Happy Sunday, everyone. One of the best quarterbacks in the game who loves to bake, Baker Mayfield. He's going to have to be baking a lot today to be able to beat arguably the best team in the NFL and maybe the MVP of the 2025 season, Matthew Stafford. Can't wait for the challenge. Chris Godwin is back. We're still waiting for Bucky Irving, maybe for another week or so. Reddick is still out, and then obviously Jamel Dean still out as well. So we're starting to get a few of our players back slowly but surely, but there's no denying the fact the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a top 10 team in the NFL. The Rams are the best team in the NFL. So we're 6-4, 4-2 on the road. They're 8-2. 4-1 at home. And again, Matthew Stafford has been playing like the best quarterback in the game. And again, if you look at his quarterback to interception ratio, it is insane. And again, the offense, the defense, the special team, Sean McVay has got that team going. You got Matthew Stafford, you got Kyron Williams, you got Puka Nacua. You lost Cooper Kupp to the Seahawks, no problem. Let's get Devontae Adams and have him lead the NFL with 10 receiving touchdowns. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. And obviously on the opposite side, they got Jared Verse and company. So this is definitely going to be a huge game here this Sunday night. The Rams are favored by 7.5 on the Vegas line, which they should be. The Eagles didn't score any points in the second half. The Cowboys came back. So that argument that the Eagles are the best team in football, I think that can come to an end. And again, this is a big game. After this particular matchup, our 2-month stretch of having the hardest schedule in the NFL finally comes to an end, and then we will have 6 winnable games. So even if we drop this game and go to 6-5, we can win the last 6 games of the season and hit 12-5. But again, if we win here tonight and we can shock the world, again, we might be able to run the table from the rest of the way and win 7 in a row. If we're able to do that, we'll end up going 13-4, and we'll be probably the hottest team, going into the playoffs at that point. So again, I know this is going to be a big challenge. Not a lot of people are giving Tampa a shot. We love to be the underdog. It would be nice if Jamel Dean, Hassan Reddick, and especially Bucky Irving was available. Knee, shoulder, mental health issues that he's going through. But again, we've been able to trying to stay afloat with a lot of these guys out, but at least we get Chris Godwin back. I imagine he'll be on a limited snap count. But again, you still got Sean Tucker. You got Rachaad White, right? Mike Evans is out. Godwin is back, so we're happy about that. You got Cade Otton. You got Shepard. You got Emeka Egbuka. So we got enough pieces. And really, I'm not too concerned about the offense. What really concerns me is the Tampa Bay defense. We haven't really been able to stop the run or the pass within the last month or so. And again, obviously that has, to do with some injuries and, poor coaching at times. And again, this is not going to be an easy battle. It's going to be a war, but hopefully Baker can keep us in it, into the fourth quarter. And then again, the defense has to be able to play better than they have in the last month and a half. Otherwise, this is going to turn into a blowout and the Rams are going to end up winning by 10-14 or possibly more. So again, we got to be able to score first. We got to score frequently, and we have to be able to get some interceptions, some fumbles, some quick 3 and outs, for that Rams offense. And again, hopefully we get some magic on special teams as well. Hope everyone is having a fantastic day. Dank in the building, what's good? He says, as a Seahawks fan, go Bucks. I can understand. Natman in the building, what's good? Marine Bean in the building, what's good? Dawn in the building, what's good? And I imagine every Seahawk fan will be rooting for the Bucks. And, again, if we had Bucky Irving, Hassan Reddick, Mike Evans, and Jamel Dean, I would feel a little bit better. I would feel, okay, this is the best team in the NFL right now, arguably. And obviously we've seen other teams, show that, hey, we're the best team. The Patriots, look, the Broncos. There's other teams in the AFC that you could argue, but if you're looking at offense, defense, special teams, quarterback play, we can argue until you get blue, but obviously I think right now we can undeniably say the Rams are the best team at least in the NFC. And then if you want to say the Patriots, you think they're better, or the Broncos, that's a fair argument, but again, I feel right now, I feel the Rams right now are, the best team in the NFL, the best team in the NFC, and then they're going to have a chance to be able to prove it tonight. Now, obviously, if the Buccaneers win, then the Rams will go down a peg. They're still going to be a top 5 team in the NFL and very, very dangerous. But again, that's going to be easier said than done. So we'll see how it goes. But again, I feel pretty confident, with the offense. The defense is going to be really the key. The O-line, the D-line, the defense, the coaching, and the play calling. And if Tampa's defense can force some turnovers on Stafford, we're going to have a chance. But again, when you look at his numbers this season, it almost feels like it's like a made-up stat. (2,557 passing yards, 27 touchdowns, only 2 picks all year, completion percentage of 66%, passer rating of 112.7, QBR, he's 6th. And again, Matthew Stafford definitely is one of the MVP candidates, up to this point in the NFL season. But again, we got a really good one on the other side in Baker Mayfield. And as long as we have Baker Mayfield, we know we have a chance in every single game that we play. Let's go, baby. Toby in the building. What's good? Bears beat the Steelers 31-28. A lot of close games this weekend. Patriots winning 26-20 over the Bengals. Lions winning 34-27 in OT over the Giants. Packers 23, Vikings 6 in a blowout. Didn't really see too many of those this weekend. Seahawks 30, Titans 24. Probably should have won that game by more than 6. But again, a win is a win. Chiefs hang on to their season, beating the Colts in overtime 23-20. Ravens winning 23-10 over the Jets. Browns winning 24-10 against the Raiders. Jags winning 24-27 in OT. Cowboys winning 24-21 over the Eagles. Big win for them, holding the Eagles to a shutout in points in the second half and scoring 17 themselves. Great win for the Cowboys. Falcons winning 24-10 over the Saints. And then obviously we saw a magnificent Thursday night matchup with the Texans winning at home over the Bills 23-19 with amazing defense. And then we got the Panthers and the Niners on Monday Night Football. And I'm definitely looking forward to the Panthers and the 49ers. I think that actually will be a pretty fun game to watch and call. All right, baby, let's go. Yeah, but also, Dank, you're a biased Seahawks fan, so you have to keep that in mind as well, and you know that too. Of course, anyone that's a fan of a team are going to think that their team is just as good as the rival, but, last time I checked, right, Sam Darnold threw 4 picks in a game. Sam Darnold threw 4 in one game. Stafford has thrown 2 all season. So again, Devontae Adams is leading, the league in touchdown receptions. Not to say that JSN isn't playing like the best receiver in the game. He is, but again, Seahawks are a pretty good team. But again, I don't think they're on the Rams level. But again, you're a Seahawk fan, so you have your own opinion. But again, hopefully you guys can make the playoffs, and then, anything can happen once that day comes. Let's go, baby. Baker. Hands off to Rachaad White up the middle, and they should probably be getting Tucker, more opportunities and looks, but it is what it is. 6-yard gain for Rachaad White. Landman and Verse in there with the tackle. 2nd down and 4 at the Tampa 34. What's good, brother? Yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs is a cheat code. I would agree with that. And really what it comes down to is just making the playoffs, right? You just got to be one of the top 7 teams in the NFC or the AFC. And even if you're number 7, anything can happen. 2nd down and 4. Shotgun set. Baker, short right to Emeka Ibuka. And that's a 3-yard gain, just short of the marker. 3rd down and 1 at the Tampa Bay 37. Right. But also you got to, look at every facet of the game. Coaching, defense, O-line, D-line, and look at what the Rams have been able to do this year. It's hard to give credit, to another team in the division that's playing better football, but again, there's no shame in, mentioning that the Rams are a good team. Obviously it makes the NFC West look better. And again, anything can happen in the playoffs. Remember, the Rams almost beat the Eagles to make the Super Bowl last year, so this shouldn't really be a big surprise. And there we go. Tucker up the middle with a 3-yard gain. Fisk with the tackle. 1st down, Buccaneers. And I do like Sam Darnold, on the Hawks. I think it's a good fit, and again, we'll just see how it all kind of plays out. Whoever is, injury-free, to the best of their abilities, who gets hot and healthy at the right time in December and January, will definitely be able to go on a run. And it definitely feels like the NFC is up for grabs. There's not just one team that's so much better, than everyone else. Even if the Rams and Eagles were kind of the top dogs, I don't think that they're, unbeatable. They're definitely beatable. Baker, looking, and scrambling to that right side with a little bit of a spin move, 3-yard gain. Turner with the tackle. 2nd down and 7 at the Tampa Bay 43. Yeah, 27 touchdowns, 2 picks. He hasn't thrown a pick in like 6-7 weeks. So, that definitely will help, your team winning football games. There's no doubt about that. No, Milroe is a gimmick quarterback. No chance in hell. If you ended up having Milroe as the starting quarterback, they would be fucked. I'll just say that. 2nd down and 7. There's some positive things that he can do, but he can't be the starter. No way in hell. Little screen pass. There's Tez Johnson. Go Ducks. And pushed out of bounds with a 6-yard run there off that screen. Kitchens with the tackle. 3rd down and 1 at the Tampa Bay 49. And obviously, if we can get points early and often, that's going to give us a chance to keep the game close and try to be able to upset arguably the best team in the NFL and the best team definitely in the NFC at this point. I think the Patriots and the Broncos are very, very good as well. And there we go. Tucker should be the lead back. And a nice 7-yard run, gashing right up the middle. Bates and Curl with the tackle. 1st down and 10 at the Rams 44. Move the chains. 1st down, Buccaneers. Let's go. You could always plug and play, Milroe, for a play here or a play there, but again, that's definitely not good enough to be a starting quarterback in the NFL at this point in his career. And I don't think he'll ever will be. 1st down and 10. Mayfield, deep right. Ibuka in double coverage. Good defense there by Durant. Poking that away. Beautiful defense by Los Angeles. And their secondary. 2nd down and 10 at the Rams 44. And again, I know Godwin is back. Limited snap count. And again, hopefully Ibuka will be able to get open at some point in this game, because we're going to need as much offense as we can get, knowing that our defense has struggled within the last month and a half. I call it how I see it. I'm not biased. It doesn't matter if it's a great player on my team or a great player against another team. We're going to give credit where credit is due. If someone is beast, we're going to make sure that we acknowledge that. Rashad White up the middle with a 1-yard run. 3rd down and 9 at the Rams 43. Megan with a 5er. Yeah, it probably wasn't the most amazing performance. You would think against a bad Titans team that you should have been able to win by, 10 or 14 or 17 or even more than that. But again, there was a lot of close games, this weekend. And again, at the end of the day, even though it wasn't pretty at all times of that game, which I watched, at least you got the dub. And even if you only win by 1 point, a win is a win. And again, a lot of NFL games end up being decided by, 3 to 7 points. And sometimes that's just the way it goes. 3rd down and 9. Mayfield looking, pump fake, floater, and incomplete into a dead zone in that zone defense there for the Rams, and that's 4th down and 9 at the Rams 43. Megan with a $5. Go Hawks. Great win for you guys. Could have been by more, but hey, you'll take the dub. Stacks. Racks with a little. Cactus Jack. Bang, bang. We're at 5. 95 to go on the Dono train. Appreciate you very much. Bucks with the punt. And fair caught there by Kyron Williams. But I mean, if you look at the scores, based on, this weekend, a lot of them are much closer than they probably should have been, right? Bears, winning 31-28 over the Steelers to improve to 8-3 shows you how good the coach has done. The offensive coordinator, formerly of the Lions, they are not really the same team without him. But again, it shows you end up getting a great OC that turns into a head coach, and then the team believes. Then you end up coming up with crazy records like that. The biggest surprise in the NFL this year, the Chicago Bears. 8-3, defeating the Steelers 31-28. Patriots are the first team to 10 wins, 26-20 over the Bengals. Lions almost lost to Jameis Winston and the Giants, but found a way to be able to get it to OT. Lions ended up winning, though, 34-27 in overtime. Another game that the Lions should have blown out the Giants, especially with no Neighbor or Dart or Scattaboo. But again, it is what it is. Packers 23, Vikings 6. One of the blowouts here today. Seahawks 30. Titans 24. And the only reason that game wasn't maybe a bigger blowout, the Hawks didn't score any points in the fourth quarter. If they were able to, then we would have ended up getting that double-digit victory. Chiefs 23, Colts 20 in OT, keeping their season on the line, but definitely not playing great ball at this point. Colts are still a very, very good team, but they need to find a way to win on the road, having losses to the Steelers and the Chiefs on the road this season. If they want to be able to win the playoffs, they have to be able to win on the road. Ravens 23, Jets 10, and another blowout. The Jets are terrible, so that's no surprise. 24-10, Browns over the Raiders, the battle of the bads. Both teams are terrible, but somebody had to win. Jags 27, Cardinals 24, in a game that the Jags probably should have won by more, but they won in OT, and it is what it is. Cowboys 24, Eagles 21, scoring 17 in the second half after being down 21-7 and winning the game 24-21. Cowboy defense holding the Eagles and Jalen Hurts to 0 points in the second half. Big win for the Cowboys to be able to keep their dreams alive of maybe being a wild card team in 2025. Falcons 24, Saints 10 in a blowout. The Saints are tanking without saying they're tanking. And then the Texans won 23-19 over the Bills on Thursday night. Great defense by the Texans. And then you got Panthers and Niners on Monday Night Football. Hopefully the defense will show up here today for us. Yeah, and JSN is incredible. It's nice to be able to see guys break out, and again, you knew after, DK is gone and Lockett's gone, he was still getting a lot of looks even when those guys were on the team. And great to be able to see the relationship with Darnold and JSN and seeing him rise to the top, of the wide receiver rankings on how he's playing this season. Hand off, Kyron Williams off that left tackle. Yaya Diaby with the tackle, 1-yard gain. 2nd down and 9. Stafford, shotgun set. Short right to Kyron Williams. And a 2-yard pass. Levante David, my boy, with the tackle. 3rd down and 7 at the Rams 23. Yeah, the Lions have a lot of concerns, and again, they were very, very good last year. But again, when you end up losing, a brilliant play caller, it feels like their offense isn't really as good as it was last year. Same thing with Philadelphia. Both teams are still good, but it kind of feels like something is missing, from both of those squads on offense this year, with essentially the same roster from last year. So, besides a few things that are obviously missing, like the Lions OC, who's now the Bears head coach, doing a great job. 13-yard pass completed from Stafford to Devontae Adams. 1st down, Rams. Move the chains. 1st down and 10 at the Rams 36. like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on that dono train, and 5 to 15 subs. Let's get it, baby. Stafford, short right to Parkinson, and that's going to be a 7-yard gain. 2nd down and 3 after that 7-yard pass. And I'm just worried about the run defense and the pass defense, especially with no Reddick up front and no Jamel Dean. We know that we got Vita Vea, who's like our Warren Sapp. We got Levante David, it was kind of like our Derek Brooks. And then we got Antoine Winfield Jr., who's our John Lynch. But, you can have 3 really good players on D, but it's 11 on 11. So it's really going to be up to the others to be able to step up to make big plays, against one of the top guys that's going to be in the MVP consideration in Matthew Stafford. 27 touchdowns, 2 picks, hasn't thrown a pick in like 2 months. That's pretty wild. Stafford, short right, Puka, and big yak yards, big stiff arm, 1st down, Ramley. Antoine Winfield Jr. and Jacob Parrish in coverage. 31-yard pass, 1st down, Rams. And again, Sean McVay has always been one of the most intelligent coaches in the game. Again, his memory, based on previous play calls and old games is, second to none. And again, he knows how to exploit a defense. And it definitely helps when you have Stafford playing like the best quarterback in the NFL, Kyren Williams playing typically like a top 10 running back in the league. And then you got Puka and Devontae Adams, who might be the best duo at wide receiver in the NFL this season. Pretty wild. Stafford, get his ass. There we go. Yaya Diaby. It's 12 noon. You know what time it is? A Buccaneers sack lunch. Yum, 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 yum. There we go. Yaya. Love it. 2nd down and 20 after that 10-yard loss. Yeah, McCarthy is terrible. Right now, Natman, the Raiders are terrible. I think you know that. And the Panthers, I don't think they have a chance on winning the South, even if we lose today. But I do think that they're much improved. They're much better than, obviously the Falcons and the Saints this year. And again, hopefully in the near future, we'll have the Buccaneers and the Panthers, in the playoffs. But, obviously record-wise, they're going to be close. And if they win, they're going to be right there. If we lose and they win on Monday night against the Niners, they're going to be right there. But we got an easier schedule kind of the rest of the way. But we do play the Panthers twice in the last 6 games. So essentially, yes, they do have a chance to overtake, Tampa Bay. But I don't think that will happen. Not this season. Maybe down the road, but not this season. 3rd down and 18. And just like that, Puka Nacua, 1st down, Rams. And again, this is going to be a tough battle because even when we ended up playing offenses that were nowhere near this good, we couldn't stop the run. We couldn't stop the pass. Injuries have hurt. And again, we've been able to get exploited pretty badly, within the last month. So we know that we feel good on offense with Baker Mayfield, but really the key is defense. And, we can't be giving up big plays like this. 18-yard pass here, 30-yard pass there, 20-yard run here, 20-yard run there. It's just unacceptable. 1st down and 10. Stafford under center. Fake toss, little bootleg. Wide open. And diving towards the end zone. Parkinson is there, and looks like we got him out at the 1, and they're about to score probably in the next play with Kyren Williams right up the middle. But the Panthers, based off record and percentage, yes, they do have a chance to be able to take over the South, but we're trying to win for the 5th year in a row. And, again, the schedule gets much easier after, honestly, we had the hardest schedule in the NFL out of any team in the last 2 months. So it's nice to be able to have a little bit of an easier schedule as we have a Rams timeout, but you don't want to have such an easy schedule where, every game the rest of the way after this one is a trap game, and again, we have to be very, very focused. But if we can end up getting, Bucky Irving back next week for the rest of the season, that'll definitely help. We still need Jamel Dean. And obviously, with a majority of the year not having our RB1 or our top 3 wide receivers, including offensive line injuries and secondary injuries, hard to win, even with the way that Baker Mayfield was playing at the beginning of the year. But, hopefully some of these guys will be able to, put the uniform on before the year is over to help us, win the South. and then to try to be one of the, top 7 teams in the NFC. And then we'll see what happens. Obviously we know that the Rams and Eagles, are kind of towards at the top, but that doesn't mean, that the Buccaneers or the Seahawks, or the Packers or another team, the Cowboys could, find a way to get in and, do a little bit of damage unexpectedly. First and goal. Back shoulder fade, touchdown, Davante Adams. And that's his 11th touchdown of the season, which is number 1 in the NFL. And I imagine he's had a rebirth in his career, going from one location to another. And obviously the Aaron Rodgers, experiment did not work, but obviously finding a great home here in Los Angeles with a quarterback that is hot. Extra point is up by Mavis, and it is good. 7-0 Rams. Megan with a tour, appreciate you. Stacks, Racks with a little Cactus Jack. Bang, bang, appreciate you. Another tour on the Dono train. Well, you also have to remember, prior to this year, the Seahawks had one of the, 2 worst, offensive lines, during Geno's tenure. So again, for all the people that are shitting on Geno, he actually played well for you guys, considering your O-line was terrible. You had, Walker, and you had DK, and you had Lockett, and you had JSN, you had weapons to go to. But again, you guys would give him some credit when he would win, but when you would lose, you guys would get all over him, right? Sometimes unfairly, and again, if you had any quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, and if they had, the second worst offensive line, do you think that they would be able to throw, a bunch of touchdowns and win a bunch of games? Probably not. So again, there's a lot of improvements, this year that you can see with Sam Darnold. The offensive line has gotten better. The defensive line has gotten better. The defense has gotten better. The confidence is there, but again, a little unfair, and obviously when you're going from Geno to the Seahawks and then Geno to the Raiders, who do they have? You got Brock Bowers and you got a rookie in Ashton Genty. That's it. And Max Crosby on the other side. So to compare, what Geno did in Seattle and Geno now playing with one of the worst teams in the NFL, they don't have an O-line. They don't have a defense. They only have 2 weapons to go to. I mean, what do you expect? Did you expect Geno to be a Pro Bowler? Of course not. So, sometimes you have to understand it's a team effort. It's not always going to be on the quarterback. The quarterback will get the love when you win, and he'll be obviously getting, the brunt of the criticism when you lose. But again, it is a team effort. You got to have a good O-line, D-line, defense, coaching, play calling. And when everything comes together, right, then you end up getting what you got this year with Seattle. Maybe a year early. Now you guys are playing very, very good ball and continuously have been, putting up numbers week in and week out. So I feel like a little bit of the criticism, is a little unfair. And obviously Geno is not playing good, obviously with the Raiders, but if Geno was playing in Seattle this year with the improved offensive line and the improved defense, I don't know if his numbers would be close to Sam Darnold, but it would be much better than what he's doing with the Raiders right now. I think we can, say that it would be a fair statement. So. You got to understand, if your offensive line isn't good and you're scrambling for your life, you can only expect. And he actually did better than a lot of people, if you actually look at the stats and the analytics, he actually did better than what most people would have been able to do if you had a bottom 2 offensive line for, year in, year out. And the defense obviously was a liability until this year. So it's nice to be able to see the Hawks have a good O-line and a good defense after those were the 2 concerns that they've had for quite a long time. Mike in the building, what's good? Tucker running to that left side for a 4-yard gain. Jared Verse with the tackle. 2nd down and 6 at the Tampa Bay 39. Yeah, I watched that whole game, Sarah, and again, just couldn't, put up more points in that fourth quarter and let the Chiefs get back into it and lost in OT. Still a very good team, but you got to be able to find a way to win games on the road, with losses to the Steelers and now the Chiefs. But, I still think the Colts are a very, very good team, like the Patriots and the Broncos in the AFC. And then obviously we know the Rams are the top dog in the NFC at this point. 2-yard run up the middle there by Tucker. 3rd down and 4 at the Tampa Bay 41. Even Sam Darnold, remember when he was on the Jets, he didn't have an offensive line. He didn't have a defense. He was seeing ghosts and he was shitty, right? We knew he was a good quarterback at USC, but again, when you're on a bad organization that doesn't have good players, again, you're not going to look good. Even if you are a good quarterback, it is a team effort. So it's nice to be able to see him go from that, play with a good team like the Vikings, and obviously that didn't really work out for them in the playoffs, but a good regular season. And then he's, obviously feeding off that success with Seattle this year. And Chris Godwin, there we go. Godwin is back. Rod God, baby. Nice job, Chris. First down, Buccaneers. And we know he's going to be on limited snaps, but, we were really hoping to have Bucky Irving, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Jalen McMillan, Abuka, Tez Johnson, Shepard, Kate Otten. We want to have that full complement of the running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. But, we've had a lot of injuries, this season. So we're just trying to stay afloat until we get into the back end of the schedule here. Nice first down there by Chris Godwin. Baker, short left, Abuka, and good coverage there. Didn't get the block, and a great tackle there by Durant by the Rams. 3-yard loss, 2nd down and 13 at the Tampa Bay 43. We got to be able to put points on the board. Even if we end up getting a field goal here, a field goal there, we got to try to keep it close. Obviously, you want to get touchdowns when you play the Rams, and field goals usually don't cut it, but 3 is better than 0, at least early on in the game. Tez Johnson, man in motion. On 2nd down and 13. Don't drop that. Oh! Intercepted or pulled away with a fumble. And that's a touchdown, Rams. This game might already be over. Now we got to see if there's any flags on the play, and let's see if any replays come out. Wow. And just like that, 14-0 Rams. I would like to say that I'm surprised, but, again, if you're a tight end, you better come up with that catch. And if you're not going to come down with it, again, even if we were in Tampa Bay, we already knew that this was going to be a very difficult game. He bobbles it 3 times. Come on, Cade. And then gets it ripped out. And I wonder if that is going to be challenged at all. He had a little bit of control, and then his knees were down, and then it got ripped away. Let's see what happens here. Knee is down. Look, both knees ended up tapping down, right? But that's a great effort, on that interception with Durant. I don't know if you really want to call it an interception, but I guess that was enough. Extra point is up and good. So it looks like he didn't have enough control, and then he ripped it away. And a great job by Durant, who's been all over the field. And just like that, the Buccaneers are down 14-0. But honestly, the Rams have been doing this to everyone, this season. And again, there's a reason why they are arguably the best team in the NFL. I always thought that they were slightly better than the Eagles within the last few weeks, and they're showing that they can win at home, they can win on the road, and they got a lot of guys flying around. Now we really need Baker Mayfield to get us into the end zone before this turns into 21-0. Otherwise, this is going to be a big blowout. A little bit of bad luck there for the Husky, Kate Otten. And normally he's very reliable, But again, that's the first time I've seen him bobble a ball like that. And, normally for the Ducks and the Huskies that are on the Buccaneers, we got a couple of them. Jalen McMillan obviously had the neck issue in preseason and hasn't played a snap all year. Cade Otton has been good for us at the tight end position from the Huskies, as well as Vita Vea. And then obviously we have Bucky Irving, who's been out since week 3. And obviously Tez Johnson has been able to play and fill in from Oregon, but man, it's like, there's different, tiers, to some of these NFC teams. And the Rams are definitely trying to separate themselves from everyone, including the Eagles as the top team. Rams, and then maybe Eagles, and then, all the other teams right below that. And honestly, you might end up having, the Packers and the Seahawks and a few of those other teams, the Bears, right there with the, Philadelphia Eagles, especially if the Eagles start dropping games here late in the season. But it definitely is going to make for a wild playoff run in the NFC. And the AFC, we know the Patriots and the Colts and the Broncos are great. But what are we going to be able to get out of the others? Looks like the Ravens are going to overtake the Steelers, for the AFC North. Obviously many games back about a month ago. Now they're in prime position to kind of run away with that particular division. And then obviously you got the Broncos and the Chargers and the Chiefs still trying to figure out a position in, the AFC West. And then you're probably only going to have one team, in the South with the Colts making it, but the Jags still have a pretty good record, but we will see if they can keep that up, the rest of the way, and if they will be able to keep it up the rest of the way, then the Jags would be able to get in as a wild card team as well. But again, there's only so many spots, only 7 in the AFC and 7 in the NFC. Kind of looked like to me that he had control when the knee was down as well. Had it, knee down, and then it got ripped away. I don't know. For me, that, I don't know if that was really a touchdown there, but, I think that they should have reviewed that and looked, but obviously he bobbled it when he was on his feet a couple times, but then I feel like, he has control and then the knees are down, and then Durant's got some strong arms and ripped it out. Give him kudos to him, but I don't know. I don't know if that's a touchdown. And I would probably say that even if it wasn't the Buccaneers, like even if it was on the opposite side, if that was something that we did, First down and 10. Kind of a weird play, but, I'm used to it. Shotgun set. Baker. And pass incomplete. And they go back to Cade Otton. Why are you going back to Cade after that big debacle? Kitchens is there with the coverage. We got to be able to go to other players other than Cade Otton. Well, that's your opinion. Second down and 10 at the Tampa Bay 35. 14-0 Ram lead here early with less than 2 minutes to go here in the first quarter. And I already knew that this was going to be a very, very difficult game considering our defense really hasn't been very good in the last month and a half. Shotgun set. Baker. And screen pass to Ibuka. Can't even get a screen pass to get fucking completed. Damn. Third down and 10 at the Tampa Bay 35. And you got to give kudos to the Rams and obviously their defense. They have a lot of great players that go sideline to sideline other than Jared Verse. Third down and 10, shotgun set, and a big sack lunch by Turner. Kobe Turner, it's 12 noon. You know what time it is? Time for another sack lunch. Yum, 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 yum. Fourth down and 19, and Tampa getting fucking rocked here early at the Tampa Bay 26. And again, offensive line, defense, coaching, play calling, and being on the road. Man, a little bit too much of the Ramily here early, and now the Buccaneers are going to have to punt again. And Dixon with the punt. And fair caught there by Kyron Williams. First down and 10 at the Rams 28. Shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. 14-0 Rams here early in the first quarter. And again, in a matter of moments, it might be 21-0 based on how Stafford and that offensive line have been playing with Kyron Williams, Puka Nacua, and Devontae Adams. Judah in the building. What's good? Got to find a way to get something on Stafford defensively. Easier said than done, though. It's going to be an exciting week. Thanksgiving coming up. Stranger Things 5 debuts on Thanksgiving. Or the day before Thanksgiving, Wednesday at 5 p.m. Pacific or around that time, the day before. So obviously I'm going to the Blazers and Spurs. So after I get back, that's definitely what I'll be doing. I'll be staying up late watching Stranger Things 5. Obviously they've separated it into like 3 different parts, throughout the season. And I binge watched 1 through 4 this last week. So I'm all caught up, and refreshed on all the storylines and everything. And, definitely one of the best shows that we've seen come out, not just on Netflix, but just in general for Stranger Things. Can't wait. Can't wait for the turkey, the stuffing, mashed potatoes and gravy, the rolls, the pie. I'm ready for it. And we will be doing the Bengals matchup late in the last game on the Thanksgiving slate. And then obviously on Christmas, we'll be streaming as well for that last game with the Broncos and Chiefs, I believe, as well. Oh, come on, Bucks. And again, we've had the hardest schedule out of any NFL team in the last 2 months, and I'm just ready for it to get a little bit easier. Handoff up the middle, and Blake Corum, the Michigan Wolverine, running up the middle for a 6-yard gain. Dennis with the tackle. 2nd down and 4 at the Rams 34. Shotgun set, hand up the middle, and Kyron Williams. Oh, that's Corum there. And that's the end of the first quarter. 14-0 Rams. Everything that Los Angeles wanted to do on offense and defense, they were able to do. And unfortunately, at this point, with the injuries on the O-line and the secondary and the skill position, players just were outmatched at this point. I still feel that we're a playoff team. But it just kind of feels like, if we get in and we're not healthy, we might get bumped in that first round. And I would love for us to make a run, but we're not going to be able to make a run unless we get healthy and the defense gets better, as the year goes on. But, the schedule that we had, since week 4, we had Eagles, Seahawks, Niners, Lions, Saints, one bad team, and then bye week, Patriots, Bills, Rams. There's no team in the NFL that has had a harder stretch than that. And then after this game, it gets much easier. We got the Cardinals, the Saints, the Falcons, the Panthers, the Dolphins, and the Panthers. So essentially, even if we lose this game and go to 6-5, we could win the last 6 games and go 12-5, based on that schedule. But again, we also have to worry about playing down to the competition. And again, those matchups against the Panthers are going to be very, very tough. They usually play us tough every year, and we might end up splitting with them. But if we want to win the NFC South, we might have to try to beat them, both. But that might be easier said than done, based on how Bryce Young has played and Rico Dowdle, and we'll be able to showcase the Panthers from the NFC South tomorrow going against the San Francisco 49ers. And again, the Panthers are going to have a shot. Again, it'll be tough, them being on the road, but, the Panthers have definitely been drastically improved. Maybe not as improved as like the Chicago Bears. That's probably the number one surprise in the NFL based on teams that we thought would be at the bottom. And the Chicago Bears with, Ben Johnson are doing absolutely fantastic with Caleb Williams and company. Well, the Rams are the best team in the NFC and arguably one of the best in the NFL. If you don't watch the Buccaneers or you don't watch the Rams, then you'll make an ignorant statement like that. The Rams have been playing the best ball out of any team in the NFC besides the Eagles. Eagles have been a little shaky the last couple weeks, but the Rams have been very, very good. I mean, when your quarterback has 27 touchdowns and 2 picks, and you're throwing it to Puka and Devontae Adams, and you got Kyron at running back, and a great defense and a great head coach with no injuries that are really major, yeah, I mean, you're going to be a good team, and it's going to be hard to beat teams like this. And, any NFC team playing the Rams right now probably wouldn't win, including Philadelphia. And that's a fact. So, and again, we will see how it all plays out. And, it might end up being a Rams-Broncos Super Bowl. I could definitely see a matchup like that possibly happening. Stafford? This isn't the defense with Sapp and Brooks and John Lynch and Rondé Barber. This is not the same team. 6-yard pass there from Stafford to Allen. Nice catch there from Davis Allen, the other tight end. 3rd down and 3 at the Rams 46. Stafford. Nice catch by Davis Allen there on that replay. Yeah. But if the Colts and the Pats played the Rams, I don't think they would win. Just being honest, I think that the Rams would beat the Colts. The Pats would be a little bit tougher, based on what they have on their roster and whatnot. But, to me, the Rams are the best team in the NFL right now, even though, the Patriots do have 10 wins. I get that. But, I think if they matched up one-on-one, I think the Rams would beat both. And a big first down there by Stafford to Mumpfield. First down and 10 at the Tampa Bay 43. Well, we got to be able to see if the Patriots can actually win in the playoffs with the lack of experience. That will be something that the Colts and the Patriots are going to have to battle with, and we'll see. To me, I think the Broncos are better than the Patriots and the Colts, in my opinion, but everyone's going to have an opinion. So, and again, all the teams are great, it's like tit for tat. But, to me, the Rams and the Broncos, to me, are, looking pretty good. And I respect what the Colts and the Patriots are doing. And if I had to throw another team in there, I would put the Patriots in there as well. And again, they're doing good in the regular season, but when it comes to the playoffs, and again, the lack of experience for the Patriots and the Colts, that could come down to, them losing potentially, against maybe one of the other veteran teams, if they get in and get hot at the right time. Stafford pass incomplete there to Davis Allen. 2nd down and 10 at the Tampa 29. Reflect with the tenor. Appreciate you. Yeah, it should be a good one. It'll be a trap game for the Ducks and a good opportunity for the Huskies to play spoiler. Stacks, Racks with a little Cactus Jack. Bang, bang. Congratulations on your Husky win as well. Beating UCLA and mollywopping them. And incomplete there to Davis Allen. Yeah, NFC has more talent, in my opinion, as well, top to bottom. The teams are a little bit more well-rounded and whatnot, but Patriots have pretty good balance. The Bronco offense at times runs in mud, but it could get better as the season goes on. And then obviously the Colts, got a good offense, but sometimes that defense, at times looks a little shaky. But overall, all those teams are great this season. And a little screen pass. And Parkinson rumbling and a bumbling. First down, Rams. 14-yard gain there from Stafford to Parkinson. First down and 10 at the Tampa 15. Yeah, but Nix has also shown that he can step up in the fourth quarter, and you also have to look at who do they have. They don't really have a full, complemented offensive line that's finished just yet. They don't have J.K. Dobbins. They have R.J. Harvey, right? And then their best receiver is Cortland Sutton, who's kind of a 2, not a wide receiver 1. So they don't really have a whole lot to work with. I mean, Troy Franklin and Cortland Sutton, that doesn't really scream greatness, So again, I think that you have to understand when you're comparing Bo Nix, to some of the other quarterbacks, what do they have to work with? Obviously, Stafford is, playing with Kyron Williams and Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams. If Bo Nix had talent like that around him, yeah, his numbers would be higher as well. So you also have to look at, who they're throwing to and who they have around them. And obviously, we know the Broncos defense is the reason why they're doing as good as they're doing. First and goal, passer, Stafford, short left to Puka, incomplete. That's a rare incompletion. Second and goal at the Tampa Bay 5, and it feels like it's going to be 21-0 here in a moment. Yeah, Cowboys' comeback was huge, and again, to be able to shut out the Eagles in the second half, and that's not something that most teams can do. So congratulations to them. We know that, Dak is a good football player. The defense is usually, very shaky for the Cowboys, but as of late, they've been playing better, and again, the Cowboys are, looking like they could maybe make a wild card this year. They're definitely going to be in the running for one of the spots. Stafford on second and goal, and incomplete short right to Devontae Adams, who's a monster this year. Ike Smith with the coverage there. Third and goal at the Tampa Bay 5. Yeah, they ended up shutting out the Eagles, and I don't think I've seen the Eagles shut out in the second half all year. I think that's the first team that's done that. So, kudos to them. I'm not a Cowboy fan myself, but I respect, good play. And, anytime you see a team that shouldn't probably win, Cowboys, winning against a team like the Eagles, but again, Philadelphia, they haven't looked the same, since winning the Super Bowl last year. That offense, Saquon is no longer the best running back in the game. That's Jonathan Taylor, but, it's starting to get, at times better, but it just doesn't feel like it's the same offense as last year. Stafford, touchdown, Parkinson. Golly, 20-0 Rams. Fuck. And an extra point incoming here soon, and hopefully Tampa can get on the board so that way it at least can be somewhat of a decent matchup here. And I knew that this potentially could happen. This is not like a surprise. I've watched a lot of the Rams games this year, and, they are the real deal Holyfield. Extra point is up and good. 21-0 Rams. Now, did I expect to be down 21-0 this early? No. Obviously that kind of questionable, interception with the Cade Otton play, but still, even if that play didn't happen, it didn't really feel like Tampa was moving the ball down the field. And, these are the games, when you end up playing a powerhouse like the Rams, you need Bucky Irving. You need your RB1. You need Mike Evans, your wide receiver 1. We need Chris Godwin, who just came back today, but we haven't had him, pretty much for a good chunk of the year. We need Jalen McMillan. We need more offensive line. We need Jamel Dean. We need on defense. Like, we need a full complement, of a roster. And even if we had everyone, we could still get our ass kicked like this. But at least we would feel a little bit better, with the play calling, if you ended up having Tucker, Rashad White, and then Bucky. And obviously Bucky is a poor man's Jahmyr Gibbs. He's not as good as Jahmyr Gibbs. And again, Jahmyr is on like a whole nother level by himself. But he's the closest thing to Jahmyr Gibbs that we have in the NFL. Kind of an undersized back that can run and catch and can be a big X factor, and with not having Bucky Irving since week 3, I'm actually kind of surprised that we're still at the record that we're at. But again, we've had the hardest schedule in the NFL in the last 2 months, and it finally gets easier. And hopefully Bucky, with the shoulder and the knee, and on top of that, he's going through depression. So he's got like mental health issues. So he could have played today,
but he's just mentally not right. And again, when you've missed this much football and he knows what he means to the team, prayers up to him. I want him to be mentally right, because obviously if he comes back and he's still in like depression mode, he's not going to be beneficial to the Buccaneers. He's not going to be able to play up to his potential. So, whenever he decides that he's okay, obviously the Buccaneers and the NFL will welcome him back. But again, missing a lot of time, this is not something that Bucky has ever had to endure in his career. And I hope that, mentally and physically he'll be okay. So that way that we can, potentially win the NFC South for the 5th year in the row. But again, based on how the roster sits, we can't match up, evenly with the Rams the way that they've been playing lately. Now if we end up playing, the Eagles and, the Lions, we lost to them, earlier in the year, but I feel like we match up pretty well with them. Seahawks, we beat them. Packers. So it's like if you look at a lot of the other NFC teams, I feel like we match up pretty well. But, most fans of teams, if you don't got your RB1, you don't have your top 3 wide receivers, you got injuries on the O-line and the secondary. I mean, what do you expect? You can't expect to be, 8-2 or, 9-1. You know that you're going to take losses, especially against good teams. And now we just have to pray that we can get on the board sooner than later. So, this doesn't end up into a complete blowout. So. But again, you get a lot of people that don't realize like how banged up we are. I mean, we're just as banged up as like the Niners were. We're probably the 2 most injured teams in the NFL based on, and it's, not just like players, but like really good players, Evans, Godwin, McMillan, Jamel Dean. We're not talking about just guys that are just average or below average or bench guys. We're talking about guys that are potentially Hall of Fame or top tier guys. And, you got to imagine if you didn't have your RB1 or your top 3 receivers, how good would your team be? Probably not very good. So, first down and 10, Baker under center, and Tucker up the middle, 4-yard gain, and we can't abandon the run. Second down and 6 at the Tampa Bay 39. Yeah, but also, too, that was the last time that we were healthy, in the first 3 weeks of the season when we had to have 3 comebacks by Baker. And then we started having injury after injury, and, we haven't been able to really be the same team since. So, second down and 6. And Baker Mayfield pass incomplete to the short right area there. Third down and 6 at the Tampa Bay 39. Also, you have to be able to look at, who you're going up against, matchup for matchup, O-line versus D-line, and, how you're looking and how many backups that you got in there and, how they're progressing. So, obviously, Baker is a competitor, but, we're definitely out of our element here. We've got a flag on the play. Shotgun set. Baker scrambling and gambling. 9-yard gain. There we go. First down, Buccaneers. There we go, Bake. Let's go. Yeah, and I mean, really, whoever gets hot and healthy, at the right time, but again, right now, it definitely feels like the Rams have been the best team for a majority of the year besides the Eagles. And again, good teams, with the Seahawks and the Buccaneers and the Lions and the Packers, there's a few others that have been good, but, obviously the Rams and the Eagles have looked the best for a majority of the year. But as of late, the Rams have, definitely overtaken, what we've seen out of Philly the last few weeks. And, we know Philly can turn it on in the playoffs. They always do. But they definitely feel like they're missing something on offense. 1-yard run there by Rachaad White. Young and Davis with the coverage. Second down and 9 at the Tampa Bay 49. and again, it's like, I've been a fan of this team for, 30 years. So, for us to be able to play well or not play well, any type of scenario does not surprise me, especially when I know who's healthy and who's not. Baker and Cade Otton. Luckily, he doesn't get one ripped away for another touchdown, 3-yard pass. 3rd down and 6 at the Rams 48. But also you got to give credit where credit is due with the Rams. I mean, they are so talented. Offense, defense, O-line, D-line, coaching, play calling, everything, has been perfect for them essentially this season. No weaknesses on this Rams football team. And again, they almost beat the Eagles last year. They were very, very close on making it to the Super Bowl last year, if you remember. So, it kind of feels like it could be, potentially like a Bronco-Rams Super Bowl. That could be an option. Baker steps up in the pocket. How did he get out of that? Yes! There we go. Baker. And Baker is tough. Whether you like the Buccaneers or you hate them, whether you love Baker Mayfield or you hate him, he's a competitor, and again, he suits our team with his personality. He'll run through a wall. And again, we just need everyone to be playing like a Baker. And unfortunately, we only have so many guys available. And, Baker definitely keeps us in games, and we're very blessed to have him. Love me some Baker Mayfield. Nice 7-yard run there by Baker Mayfield. Shotgun set, handoff to Tucker, following his lead block. There we go, breaks a tackle. And a nice 9-yard run there. Landman with the tackle. 2nd down and 1 at the Rams 32. Dave with a 7. Appreciate you. Stacks. Racks with a little Cactus Jack. Bang, bang. Appreciate you. $7 holla on the Dono train. And again, if you actually look at how, intelligent McVay is, obviously we know Kyle Shanahan is a very intelligent guy as well, but Shanahan just can't coach in the 4th quarter in the big games, but McVay, he knows how. And McVay has always been an elite talent at head coach. Baker, hands off. There we go, Rashad White. Nice 12-yard gain right up the middle. Cameron Kitchens with the tackle. Now the Buccaneers are getting a little bit of life. This game has gone by pretty quick already, but we have to definitely get on the board. Getting it to 21-7 is a hell of a lot better than 21-0. Yeah, I like Tucker more than White as well. White was our starter for a little bit, but I think Tucker gives us a little bit more oomph, and then White should be the RB2, and obviously having no Bucky Irving hurts, and we haven't had him since week 3, which has been really, really tough on the Buccaneers squad and the fan base. And a little end around here. Tez Johnson, go Tez. And again, Tez's frame is, he's very light, 165 to 180. And again, but he does have a great speed and has stepped up, not only from his time with the Oregon Ducks, but here with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Nice job by Tez. 6-yard run, 2nd down and 4 at the Rams 14. Now we are getting into a Bucca territory. This would be an option where, he could definitely get a look. Sterling Shepard, Cade Otton, Tez Johnson, also options as well. 2nd down and 4. Finally getting a little bit of momentum here for the Buccaneer offense. Shotgun set, Baker, screen pass is open. Floater! There we go! Touchdown! Tez Johnson! Go Ducks! Let's go Bucks! Let's go Ducks! Nice job, Tez. And again, with all the injuries that we've had, being able to have a Sterling Shepard and a Tez on the roster is huge. But look at Tez in the route. Breaks him right off the route. Look at the speed, the separation, and look at the dime by Baker. Let's go. Go Ducks and go Bucks. And again, for the guy that is the lightest player, based off weight in the NFL, and Tez Johnson, he can still play in this league. Great job. Extra point is up. And good by McLaughlin. 21-7 Rams. There we go. But again, I know you need a Bucca for your parlay and whatnot, but you'll probably have a chance, later in the second half. Dank with a 5. Appreciate you. Stacks. Racks with a little Cactus Jack. Bang, bang. Another 5 for Dank. Appreciate you. Well, I'm feel a little bit better. I'm still a little annoyed about the Durant rip away. I feel that, that was questionable, but, it's still, likely that we wouldn't have scored probably on that drive anyways. But, it would have definitely made me feel a little bit better, being down 14-7 at this point rather than 21-7. But, the Rams are very, very good. So, we're playing essentially the best team in the NFC, one of the top 3 teams overall in the entire NFL. Whether you feel that the Colts, even though they lost today to the Chiefs, I don't think they're on the Rams level, but, Patriots and Broncos, they might be, and again, it's 7 teams in the NFC, 7 teams in the AFC. And, at any given time, anything can happen. Yeah, Tez is 165. We haven't had a player that light in a long time, 165 pounds. We've seen guys, 180, 185, 190, 195. But, it's been a long time since we've seen a guy that's under 175 pounds. So. Oh, yeah. Latu with that tip to himself. That was beautiful, and again, it's just, you need to be able to find a way to finish games, and again, to let the Chiefs back in that game. The Colts should have won that game. Daniel Jones has played great at quarterback, for a guy that people gave up on, in New York. He really has a great personality with the Colts team. And the one thing I really like about Daniel Jones, every time you watch a Colts game, before every, big play, before the huddle, he goes up and acknowledges every player, every wide receiver, every O-lineman. He goes up to each one, looks them in the eye, and makes sure that everyone is on the same page. You rarely, see a quarterback that has had a career like him, do something like that. Even quarterbacks that are elite that don't do that. So, Daniel Jones definitely has my respect. And I know he's got the respect of all his players on offense and defense. It's just about cleaning up a little bit of those mistakes, and trying to close out games in the fourth quarter and trying to find a way to win on the road, which, obviously losses to the Steelers and the Chiefs on the road, tough places to play. But again, you never know. They might be able to make those adjustments when we get to the playoffs and make a deep run. That wouldn't shock me either. And McLaughlin kicked 65 yards, and that'll be a touchback to the Rams 35. But again, after, the Broncos and the Patriots and the Colts, then obviously you got the Ravens, the Chargers, the Jaguars. So it's like you got a couple teams that feel like they're Super Bowl contenders, and then you got a few teams that might be pretenders, but they might still make the playoffs. They might go to the playoffs, but they might get bumped, pretty immediately. But you never know. A big injury here, a big injury there. A lot of things can change between now and the first week of the wild card. First down and 10, shotgun set, Stafford, and a little screen there, short pass to that left side to Jordan Whittington. Second down and 7 at the Rams 38. Nice catch. Stafford deep middle to Puka Nacua. And they got the two best wide receivers on the same team. Obviously we know JSN has had a great, solo year pretty much. Horton was good before he went on to IR and whatnot. But, what he's able to throw to from Puka on one side and Devontae on the other. Devontae definitely feels very blessed to be in this position on this team at this point in his career. And another pass there by Stafford to Kanata Mumpfield. First down, Rams, first down and 10 at the Tampa 24. And again, Stafford, even with his back issues over the years, again, 27 touchdowns and 2 picks coming into the game. Incredible player this season. Now he's at 29 touchdowns and 2 picks. I mean, again, you just don't see stats like that in the NFL that often anymore. But like I said already at the beginning of the stream, you know, we don't have all our players available and healthy, and we haven't been playing even against bad teams, you know, very well. Touchdown, Rams. And again, you know, our secondary is, you know, not healthy. And again, you know, even if we were playing teams much lower than even us, the same type of thing has been happening. Maybe not to this extent, but not surprised. 24-yard touchdown pass. Now that's 30 touchdown passes and 2 picks for Stafford on the year. And Zion McCollum, you know, again, one-on-one with Devontae Adams, you're not going to win that battle very often, if at all. Extra point is up and good. 28-7 Rams. Hopefully we can get a touchdown here in the last 3:10 with Baker to at least cut the lead to 28-14. I mean, it doesn't feel like we're going to be very competitive in this matchup, but, you know, it's hard to get momentum, you know, when you don't have any easy games to fall back on, you know, especially with all the, you know, tough games that we played in this 2-month stretch. You know, I've been a fan for 30 years, and I've never seen a 2-month stretch as hard as we've had this season. So luckily, this will be the last tough game for us in that 2-month stretch, and then it'll get much easier. Then we just got to be able to hope that we don't play down to the competition. So. Yeah, they haven't really had to run the football just yet. You know, Blake Corum got a few touches there. And, you know, when you're hot like Stafford, you know, again, you have the ability to go with Kyron and Blake Corum. But again, you know, this has just been one of those games. Great job by the Rams, proving to everyone that they are the number one team in the NFC and arguably the best team in the NFL. Obviously, we know the Patriots and the Broncos, you know, have had a great season as well. You know, but again, Rams, you know, probably should have made the Super Bowl last year and barely lost to the Eagles. And maybe this is destiny for them. You know, sometimes you got to crawl before you walk and, you know, take a painful L before you end up taking that leap. And again, you know, definitely could end up being a Rams-Broncos Super Bowl this year, even though there'll be other teams trying to be able to take the spot. And Evans kicked 65 yards. And Owen Wright, 20-yard return, first down and 10 at the Tampa Bay 20. Come on, Baker. Cade Otton, man in motion. And Tucker runs to that left side for no gain. Landman and Wallace with great coverage there. And the Rams defense has great speed, you know, sideline to sideline. And it's not just Jared Verse. And again, very, very well coached. They have no weaknesses. O-line, D-line, defense, coaching, play calling, quarterback, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. Again, if you want to build a team, this is how you do it. And that's why Sean McVay is one of the best coaches in the NFL and has been since he's been the coach of the Rams. There's just no doubt about that. 2nd down and 10 at the Tampa Bay 20. Man in motion, Tez Johnson, shotgun set here for Baker. And little check down. And a short gain there by Tucker. About a 4-yard gain. 3rd down and 6 at the Tampa Bay 24. And again, Baker's not going to be able to, have plenty of time in the pocket to be able to go deep to Mike Evans or Chris Godwin or Jalen McMillan or Ibuka like he normally does, because some of those guys are obviously injured, and other guys that are available like Ibuka, you got to have time to make those, routes develop. And, the Rams defense is, all over the place. It's like you got about a second and a half. And if you don't throw the ball away, you're getting sacked, or you're going to throw a pick or you're going to fumble. They are everywhere. We hit the 2-minute warning, 28-7 Rams. We're at 33 likes, 67 to go with over 100 in the room. I need the mods and the regulars in the room to help. I can't do everything by myself. Help your boy out. 28-7 Rams. All right, come on, Baker. All right, 2-minute warning, 3rd down and 6. And hopefully Baker can find Ibuka. Godwin is on limited snaps, but great to finally have Godwin back. And, once we get Bucky back and Jamel Dean, then things will be a little bit better, as well as Hassan Reddick, but especially Bucky Irving. He really made the offense go. And when you don't have your RB1 or your top 3 receivers, it's hard to be able to compete with a lot of the big boys, in the NFL. But, we've been trying to do our best with that really tough stretch in the last 2 months with a 6-4 record. But, even if we drop this game and go to 6-5, which obviously it looks like it's going to happen, which, very clearly down by 21, it would take a miracle to even get close before this one is over. But again, we have a very easy stretch the rest of the way. So we could still, end up at a 12-5 record, if we can end up running the table the rest of the way. But then we just have to be able to not play down to the competition, and hopefully we can, win the NFC South for the 5th year in a row and see where the chips fall. Baker Mayfield, short middle on that shotgun set to Chris Godwin, 4-yard gain. And now it's 4th down and 2 at the Tampa 28. Big hit there. All right, Rams call timeout. I'm not sure if you would really want to go for it here, but I mean, we're already down 21 and whatnot, so it's not like we're winning, but again, it's like if we can at least get some stats going here. 1:43 left here in the second quarter, 28-7 Rams. And again, it's going to be a very tough team to beat, the Rams, especially if they end up being a 1 seed. So but there's definitely are other NFC teams that, will definitely challenge, at least you would think. But definitely this is very eye-opening for some of the other NFC teams that are out there. 4th down and 2. And Baker, of course, incomplete. Intended receiver is Sterling Shepard, and now it will be 35-7, probably in a play or two. Sarah with the tenor. Don't think that was a very smart decision to go for it there, but when you're down by 21, then, it is what it is. And again, why didn't we run the ball? Why did we throw the ball in that situation or even run it with Baker? Sarah with the tenor. Stacks. Racks with a little Cactus Jack. Bang, bang. Yeah, and I know holidays are going to be a little tough, for you, but we always have your back here, and we appreciate you very, very much. Sarah with another tenna on the Dono train. 2-yard run up the middle here by Kyron Williams. Antoine Winfield Jr. there with coverage. And it should be 35-7, you would assume, in a play or two. I kind of anticipated that we were going to take the L today, but I didn't think it would be this extreme. But shows you when a team is hot and they're at home, this is what happens. Especially when they're the number 1 team in the NFC, arguably in the NFL. So, and they might be, one of the only offenses that could actually get points on like the Texans or the Broncos or, some of the elite defenses. There's not very many that would have a coach and the players to be able to, get through an elite defense like the Broncos and the Texans. But this Ram team is built a little bit different this year, as you can see. 3rd down and 3, shotgun set. Stafford passing complete to Devontae Adams, trying to get 3 touchdowns with Devontae in the first half. My goodness. I mean, he's already leading the NFL with 12 tutties on the season, 2 today. And he might end up getting a 3rd in the second half. That wouldn't shock me one bit. 4th down and 3 at the Tampa 21. Do they take the field goal or do they just say, fuck it? We'll find out here momentarily. Field goal is up and good. 31-7 Rams. Crazy. 31 in the first half alone. Nice kick there by Mevis. 40-yarder right down the middle is good. 31-7 Rams. All right, we got a minute 2 to try to at least get like a field goal. Obviously getting a touchdown would be great, but, we're definitely having a hard time moving the football. And most teams, would if you have an RB2 and an RB3, even though they're pretty good, for RB2, RB3 with White and Tucker, but it's not Bucky. And, and not being able to have Mike Evans and Godwin, and, it's, we have options. Ibuka has been pretty good, but again, you got to give credit where credit is due. That Ram defense is, sideline to sideline, and, we have talent, but we just don't have the talent to match up with a team like this today. All right, come on, Buccaneers. Got to do something. Maybe Ibuka can get a tutty or something. Got to get someone going. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on the Dono train, and 5 to 15 subs. I might need therapy after this one. But again, it does get much easier, after, this week. So, finally the tough schedule ends and we'll have 6 winnable games to finish off the year. So even with the injuries, based on who we're playing, if we can find a way to dig deep and, eventually get Bucky back next week for the rest of the season, there is a chance that we could end up, running the table the rest of the way. But, it doesn't feel like we're, obviously we're getting blasted here. There's no doubt about that. But again, even with our players healthy, it doesn't feel like a Super Bowl team. It feels like a playoff team, but not a Super Bowl team. And I can, obviously admit to that. And not just, this particular game, but just in general. There's been games where we played really well, and then there's been other games where the defense primarily has let us down. And, the offense at times, sputters, but again, it's not always Baker's fault. A lot of times it's the defense that we're matching up with. But, at this point, with the injuries and the poor play, and Todd Bowles is supposed to be a defensive guru, and sometimes he gets out-coached, but again, the defense has not been good for Tampa for about a month and a half. And that's a rare thing to say, because normally that's what we're known for, is being able to stop the run, stop the pass, and, be able to get interceptions and fumbles and pick sixes and fumbles for touchdowns, but not so much in 2025. Come on, Baker. But again, most defenses wouldn't be able to hang against, Matthew Stafford, Devontae Adams, Puka Nacua, and Kyron Williams. Don't kid yourself, because again, if you've played the Rams, guess what? You probably lost. So, it's not like, it's just a Tampa thing. It's, a league-wide thing. First down and 10 at the Tampa 35. Shotgun set, Mayfield, short right to Sterling Shepard, his former teammate at Oklahoma. 7-yard gain. And it feels like almost every catch that we have is like fucking bobbled. That's not ideal either. Third down and 3. After that incomplete pass there to Cade Otton. I don't know why we're going to Cade. Got to try to get Ibuka some more looks. Everyone's got stone hands out there. Yeah, Rams, could be 9-1 or 10-0, but again, it's the NFL. It's very, very difficult. But again, this was kind of a weird year. It was very early in the season where everyone had a loss. Normally we have like one team or two teams that are 8-0 or 9-1 or 10-0, like a really, really strong record. And to have everyone have their first loss pretty early in the season as far as the NFL league-wide was a little rare. Baker, and there's Tez Johnson. There we go, Tez. First down, Bucks. At least Tez is coming to play. Go Ducks. Go Bucks. Yeah, but again, we lack pass rushers. We need a couple Simeon Rices. We don't have any. We haven't had any pass rushers in a fucking long time that were like really good like Simeon Rice. You got Vita, who's like a Warren Sapp, but not as good as Warren Sapp. And you got Derek Brooks and, John Lynch, which is kind of like a Levante David, Antoine Winfield Jr., but it's all about the others. And, unfortunately, the role players and the others have just been very, very bad, in 2025. Baker scrambling and incomplete. And it looks like we get illegal contact here on the Rams. 5-yard penalty on Los Angeles. And we got less than 30 seconds to go before halftime. Yeah, I mean, the Rams look like a Super Bowl, team. And not only that, they look like they can win the Super Bowl. Like that's how good they look. Not just today, but, overall, the landscape of the season up to this point. But again, the Eagles and the others will have something to say about that, as we get into the playoff picture. And, AFC, you got, Patriots, Broncos, Colts, and a few others. And, it definitely feels weaker in the AFC, but someone's got to come out of that, conference as well. Baker, and pass incomplete to Chris Godwin. Forbes with good coverage there by the Rams. Second down and 10 at the Rams 49. But defense wins games, defense wins championships. And if you don't have a good defense, you have no chance whatsoever. So, and it's painful, because again, if you're a Tampa fan, depending on how long you've been a Buck fan, it's normally defense, and it's painful to be able to see them not even be able to stop a nosebleed. It's like, where's the pride? And again, I know we got a few injuries with like Reddick and Dean, but even with that being said, they have not done anywhere near to their abilities, and I'm not sure if Bowles needs to go and we need to get a new defensive coordinator and we need to figure something out, but fumble there. When it rains, it pours when you're doing shitty, right? Come on, Graham Barton. Come on, Baker. Fumble recovery there by Baker Mayfield after Graham Barton with whatever the hell that snap was. Third down and 21 at the Tampa Bay 40. Yeah, but the thing is that if you have to go against like the Colts and the Patriots, and that's going to be your biggest competition, they might be able to do just enough with Bo Nix and the Bronco offense to win, and obviously Broncos can score points with their defense too. So Nick Benito is a beast. Baker, and another sack. It's 12 noon. You know what time it is? Another sack lunch. Yum, 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 yum. Offensive line for the Buccaneers, terrible. Defense for the Buccaneers, terrible. I mean, we should lose this game, but it shouldn't be this bad, Jared Verse is on another planet. Andrea in the building. What's good? Coaching is very, key as well. You got to have a good head coach. You got to have a good offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator as well. So, 5 seconds left before halftime. Now, Patriots won against the Bengals by 6, 26-20. The first team to 10 wins. A very balanced team. It just makes you kind of wonder, with the Chiefs and the Ravens and the Bills, who normally are the top dogs in the AFC, what are we going to get out of them, in the playoffs against like the Broncos, the Colts, and, the Patriots? It's tough to say. And Baker's just looking for something, throwing up a 500 ball that turns into a duck. Intercepted. That was terrible. Jesus Christ. And after the interception, tries to run it back. Can someone make a fucking tackle? Finally, Kate Otten with a tackle. Christ. And now Baker is injured. That's great. Halftime, 31-7 Rams. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. Every like we get will go towards my therapy, as well as every dollar on the dono train. And that's not good. Baker Mayfield grabbing his elbow or his AC joint and might have just fucked up his whole 2025 season there. Hopefully that's not season ending. Because if that's season ending for Baker Mayfield, the Panthers are going to win the NFC South. Hopefully it's just like a stinger or something. The worst first half that we played all year right here, but also you have to give credit where credit is due. Look at the team that we're going against. The Los Angeles Rams are the best team in the NFC, and they look like they're Super Bowl bound. halftime will be back here in 11 minutes. And, based on how good the Rams are playing, we're pacing for a 62-14 victory for the Rams if it keeps going this particular way. So hopefully, we can come up with something, play with some pride and whatnot. But I mean, even if the game was in Tampa Bay, I feel like the score would still be the same. Maybe slightly less for the Rams, but not much. And that's the difference, between Super Bowl caliber teams like the Rams and playoff teams like the Buccaneers. There's contenders and there's pretenders. And you can still be a good team that makes the playoff that's a pretender. It just means that, more than likely you're probably going to lose in that first game, or you might be able to win one game, but then you'll definitely drop the next game against the better team. And sometimes that just happens. There's only going to be so many teams that are going to be really Super Bowl contenders, and then other teams will be playoff teams, but they'll eventually turn into pretenders. And, it definitely is painful for me to see the team play this poorly, but, I've been a Buck fan since 95, and I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, but at least we're one of two teams like the Ravens that have gone to 2 Super Bowls and won twice. So I've already been able to see my dream come true with the Bucks twice. Obviously, early on, in the John Gruden era, and obviously, in the Bruce Arians era as well. But we're not looking good here today. 31-7 Rams. Yeah, they don't really need to run with Kyron, and they've been splitting carries with Blake Corum. So they've pretty much been able to throw at will. And, we'll see if they end up changing their strategy in the second half and starting to try to bleed the clock out. And you may see Kyron and Corum get some more touches in the second half. So I want to see some highlights. Ben Johnson, 8-3 Steelers. My goodness. The Bears beating up the Steelers, improving to 8-3. Ben Johnson, my goodness. That's definitely the biggest surprise in the NFL this year. I knew this game was going to be tough, and, I knew that we were going to get exploited, and again, we haven't gone against such elite talent, with, Devontae Adams on one side and Puka on the other, because you got to think early in the season, Puka was arguably the best receiver besides JSN, then, got a couple minor injuries, and then Devontae Adams obviously got more looks, stepped up, got more touchdowns, and now is leading the league, with 12 touchdown receptions, 2 today. And, based on the connection with Stafford and Devontae Adams and company, I mean, who's going to stop them? Who's got a defense good enough to stop the Rams in the NFC? I don't know if there's any team, maybe the Eagles, but again, the defense and the special teams for the Eagles has been pretty good, but the offense hasn't been what we expected after them winning the Super Bowl last year, and obviously the Texans and the Broncos have elite defenses, but when Los Angeles is getting this type of offensive line play, with their skill position players as well as, great defense, it's going to be very, very tough to beat. And, and again, if you end up getting like a Rams Broncos Super Bowl, Broncos are not going to be able to score enough with Bo Nix against this Rams D more than likely. So if that is the matchup that we end up getting, the Rams are going to win the Super Bowl this year if it ends up being that. I'm just trying to think of a team in the AFC that could beat the Rams, and as long as they don't have any major injuries. But it's like you got the Colts, you got the Patriots, who are really good teams, right? You got the Broncos with a great defense, but the offense, is kind of, shaky at times because they don't really have a whole lot to work with. They got RJ Harvey, Cortland Sutton, and, Troy Franklin. That's not anything really to shake a stick at, but again, they're doing the best they can with what they have available with Bo and Sean Payton. And again, you got the Ravens with Lamar finally getting healthy. You got the Mahomes and the Chiefs. Even though they don't look good, they found a way to get a win against the Colts today. The Bills have a good offense, but their defense stinks with Josh Allen most of the time. So it's like, who can actually beat, the NFC this year? If the Rams make it, who could actually beat them? It's like, it feels like you might have a better chance of someone beating the Rams in the NFC rather than someone beating them in the AFC if the Rams make the Super Bowl. Could be their year. But again, maybe the biggest challenge for the Rams would be the Eagles like last year. Not to say, obviously, the way that we've been playing, we can't do it. Seahawks have been pretty good. Lions have been pretty good. Cowboys are starting to get hot, but they don't got a defense that can be trusted, game in and game out, but have been playing well as of late. Got to give them some kudos, right? But it's like, who could actually beat the Rams? And obviously, Eagles lost to the Cowboys today and whatnot, but we know the Eagles will definitely turn it on, in the playoffs like they usually do. But I think that would be the best matchup, would be Rams-Eagles. I mean, obviously, Bucs fans, Seahawks fans, Packer fans, Lion fans. Obviously, we want our team to get there, but it kind of feels like it could be a Rams-Eagles NFC championship game again. And then on the AFC side, take your pick. It could be any combination of the 6 or 7 teams, I mean, except for maybe the Jags. They're not good enough, to get there. Obviously, Lamar, is getting hot, now at the right time. But, do they have enough? I don't know. Bills, it's like offense most of the time is pretty electric, but defense, not very good. Chiefs haven't really been good on offense or defense up to this point. Broncos, great at D. Offense, not so much. Colts, pretty good on offense and defense. And Patriots, offense and defense, pretty good. So, I mean, if you're looking at the teams that are probably the most well-balanced, I would probably say the Colts and the Patriots are the most well-balanced. But could the Colts or the Patriots, if they were actually able to overcome and represent the AFC, I don't know if they would be able to hang with the Rams. And even if it ended up being the Eagles versus the Patriots or Eagles versus the Colts, I don't know if the AFC could beat them. It's possible, but I would have to see it with my own 2 eyes, to be able to see an AFC team, beat the Rams or the Eagles, if that's what we end up getting. And again, offense, defense, special teams, we'll see. We'll see. We got 3 minutes to go. 31-7 Rams. Ravens-Bengals, we'll be doing that matchup on Thanksgiving evening. So I'll be back from family, and I'll be back right in time for that particular game. So we will hang out, eat some food together, and we'll talk about what we obviously did earlier in the day. Obviously they got 2 other games that will be on before that. We'll discuss that as well at that time, and we'll be doing Monday Night Football. We're going to take Tuesday off. Wednesday, I'm going to the Blazers and Spurs. And going to the arcade and spending time with my best friend. Then Thursday, we'll end up, doing that last matchup with the Ravens and Bengals. And then on Friday, we'll actually do another NFL game. They have one game on at noon, and that'll end up being the Cowboys. Or no, who is it? Is it the Bears and the Cowboys? Yeah, Bears and Eagles. So the Bears and Eagles will be on Friday. And then Saturday will be Oregon and Washington, for college football. And then on Sunday, it'll end up being the Broncos and the Commanders. I mean, obviously, if Jaden Daniels was healthy, that would be a little bit more interesting. And then Monday will be Giants and Patriots. So, we'll see how it all plays out. But again, we'll have, Tuesday and Wednesday off, but then we'll be working nonstop from Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. At that point. But We'll be doing tomorrow's game with the Panthers and the Niners, a little revenge game for Run CMC and Christian McCaffrey. Niners will be favored heavily, but the way that Rico Dowdle, has been playing at running back for the Panthers, top 5 for a majority of the year, and Bryce Young has, obviously played a little bit better this year than he has in previous years. And, you never know. Maybe the Panthers will get the upset, but hopefully it ends up being a better game than what we're seeing here with the Rams stomping the Buccaneers here in the first half, 31-7. Yeah, but the schedule gets, much easier, after, obviously this game. And it just sucks that we had so many tough games, in a row. But there's no team in the NFL that, again, has had a harder schedule than the Buccaneers in 2025 in the last 2 months. Eagles, Seahawks, Niners, Lions, one bad team, Saints, bye week, Patriots, Bills, Rams. Like, who the fuck came up with that schedule? Like, why couldn't we have like another easy game in between? Like, we had one tough game in 2 months, or one easy game in 2 months with the Saints. Where were the other? Where's the Jets and the Cardinals and the the other matchups? Like, did they really have to schedule us like that many hard games in a row? And I've been a fan of the Bucs for 30 years, and I've never seen a gauntlet like that, in a 2-month stretch. So, even though we're going to drop to 6-5, we could still win the last 6 games. So, again, Eagles, Seahawks, Niners, Lions, Saints, Patriots, Bills, Rams. So only one easy opponent in the Saints, and that was it. But then after this game, we got Cardinals, Saints, Falcons, Panthers, Dolphins, Panthers. So in reality, as bad as, we're playing right now, and, we didn't lose all of those games in the last 2 months, but we could essentially, drop this game, go to 6-5 and win 6 games in a row and go to 12-5 and then just, see what happens, but it looks like, even with the injuries, that we could still find a way to beat those teams. And obviously the hardest matchup in those last 6 games will be the Panthers twice, because again, they usually play us well, and, regardless of what their record is. So looking forward to those matchups. And I'm definitely looking forward to, the Panthers and the Niners tomorrow. We'll be doing that on live stream. But 9 for 19, 41 yards, 1 touchdown and 2 picks, and sacked twice for Baker is not what we're used to. So, and again, some people look at the schedule and some people don't. And again, when you don't have your RB1 and you're starting 3 wide receivers out for a majority of the year, and then offensive line injuries, secondary injuries, this is what happens. You end up getting blasted by a Super Bowl caliber team. And in my opinion, this is the best team in the NFL. I think they're better than the Colts, who lost to the Chiefs today. I think they're better than the Patriots, and I think they're better than the Broncos. I think they're just the most well-balanced team, top to bottom. Even though the Patriots have 10 wins, I think if the Rams and the Patriots played one-on-one, the Rams would win, even in New England, and we'll never know. Maybe that'll be the Super Bowl matchup, but the Rams, have taken a big leap, from last season to this season, and not just getting Devontae Adams. It's more than just that. Kickoff short of the landing zone. What's new? Love me some McVay. Chief will chief in the building. What's good? I mean, McVay is such a genius. Like, he remembers, plays, based on the description, like from 5 years ago. And he'll tell you exactly what play, what quarter, who got the touchdown. Like, there's not anybody in the NFL that's on his level besides Kyle Shanahan based off memory like that. And, he's an intense guy. And, honestly, I hope one day we have a coach like that for Tampa Bay. McVay is definitely very special. Yeah, and Rams are healthy on top of that too. Puka had a minor injury, but again, they don't have any really big names that are injured. Stafford's there, Puka's there, Kyron is there, Corum is there, Devontae is there, and then they even have like random guys that you don't even know who they are, and they can make plays, on offense and defense. That's how, good that they have been. They haven't really, that's true. They haven't really had the major injury bug up to this point, as the Buccaneers have another injury on the field. Honestly, I feel like Todd Bowles is okay. I don't know. I like certain type of personality, of a coach. And, even though he's a defensive guy, I feel that sometimes he gets out-coached, even though he's a defensive coach himself. And I feel that, sometimes, blitzes at the wrong time and doesn't really, use the right scheme at the right time. So it's like, I feel sometimes, Todd does a good job, but honestly, it wouldn't really hurt my feelings if we fired him, and again, if like they fired him and then the Steelers fired Tomlin, I wouldn't mind Tomlin coming in to give us like a breath of fresh air, but again, getting someone like a Kyle Shanahan or a Sean McVay, an offensive type of mind, that's what I would prefer, instead of going with a defensive mind, because again, there's a few, defensive minded coaches, that are out there, like with the Patriots, and you've seen what they've been able to do there. But I think, getting an offensive genius, would be, my preference, like a Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan type. But it's not like either of those guys are leaving, their respective teams anytime soon. So, Chief in the building, what's good? Yeah, I agree with that too, and again, it feels like if you watch Eagle games, their defense is great. The special teams is great, but the offense, Saquon isn't Saquon. You got A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert. It's like essentially you got, the same roster, but they're not as dominant, as they were last year in their Super Bowl run. And obviously Saquon was the best running back in the game. That was a big, help to be able to open up the game for Jalen. And it was like they were pushing fucking every other play, right? And Saquon was just running over everyone. And then, they can dink and doink to A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Goddard, and just no one could really stop them. But this year, it doesn't feel like that. It feels not as bad as like Broncos and Bo Nix where they're in mud, but at times, they can't move the ball. And that's a little weird, when you have a quarterback like Jalen Hurts, a running back like Saquon, Dallas Goedert, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. That's great players, right? Super Bowl, type of players. But, it definitely feels like this is the Rams' year. Whether they win it all or just get to the Super Bowl, it could end up being a Rams-Broncos Super Bowl or something of that nature. And I just don't know if there's any AFC team, even as good as the Broncos, the Patriots, and the Colts, and a few others have done. I don't think there's a team in the AFC that could beat the Rams unless the Rams get injured. Now, if like Devontae Adams gets hurt or Puka gets hurt or Kyron Williams or Stafford, then it opens the door. But if they keep their core healthy, I don't think I see anyone really beating them this year. But again, we have to play the games to see how it all plays out. So, first down and 10. After that short middle pass to Puka for 7 yards. Kyron up the middle. And a 6-yard run there. Parrish and Tyke Smith with the coverage. But again, the Buccaneer defense is, lazy, uninspired. And again, it would not hurt my feelings if we got rid of Bowles and tried to start over. New England, Buffalo tonight. I mean, I don't know what the schedule makers were thinking, giving us the gauntlet on top of all the injuries, but I'll be definitely happy not to be able to have a tough team for the, the rest of the 6 weeks. We've already gone through 2 months of hell in the schedule. Stafford, shotgun set, towards the sideline and dropped by Devontae Adams. That's a rare drop by Devontae. 3rd down and 4 at the Tampa Bay 40. And for anyone that thought Devontae Adams' career was going to be like Aaron Rodgers, being a little bit older, obviously going to the right team at the right time, obviously Devontae made the right choice, and, the Rams are the real deal. It's like Patriots and Colts have a good, well-balanced offense and defense, but they lack playoff experience. And then you got Bo Nix that went to the playoffs, and their defense is elite, but their offense not so much. And then do we really trust the Chiefs or the Ravens or the Bills? I don't know, And a flag comes out. It's not like the Chiefs, Ravens, or Bills are as good as they were in previous years. So, and it feels like some of those teams, are missing something, right? Like they got a good offense, Bills, but not a good D. Chiefs aren't very good on offense or defense this year, right? And then the Ravens, when Lamar is healthy, they can ball, but again, I'm not sure if I really trust, the Raven defense game in and game out, Illegal formation now, 4th down and 4 at the Tampa Bay 40. Stafford running for his life and just throws it away. And the defense actually decides to play something positive on that particular play there. And now it's 1st down and 10 at the Tampa 40. Let's see if we can get a Bucca in the end zone or something. And obviously Baker is out and Teddy Bridgewater is in. So obviously Baker tweaked that shoulder. Hopefully it's not like AC joint or shoulder separation, because if Baker is out for the year, we're done. The Panthers will probably end up winning the division, especially if they win tomorrow. So we'll wait and see, but another injury for my team. What's new? Like just when you thought it couldn't get any worse for the Buccaneer fan base, now Baker Mayfield going down. Now we don't have our starting quarterback, our starting running back, 3 top wide receivers, 2 starters on the line, secondary members. I mean, when is enough is enough? The Rams have nobody healthy. I got everyone fucking injured. It's brutal. Sports gods, why? Yeah, I mean, he might be okay. But Baker is a competitor, and so if Baker can play, he'd be out there. I mean, it's like we haven't really been in a position like this all year. We haven't got smoked like this, all year. Well, our losses are 31-25 to the Eagles, 24-9 to the Lions, 28-23 to New England, and 44-32 to Buffalo. So I guess the biggest one was, 24-9? So it's not like we've gotten blown out. This is the first time all season that we've been blown out. And, when you play the best team in the NFL and you have injuries, you get exposed, right? And Stafford is playing like the MVP. There's just no doubt about that. I mean, the guy's only got 2 interceptions for the whole year. And it's not like he's been going against shitty secondaries every week. 1st down and 10, Bridgewater, hands off. Tucker with a 3-yard run up the middle. 2nd down and 7 at the Rams 45. But again, when you're a fan, a real fan, you don't turn the game off. You got to just be able to, know that you go through peaks and valleys. Sometimes things are going to be good. Sometimes things are going to be bad. And, now if we ended up having everyone healthy and we were getting smacked like this, I would be more mad, But again, when you have the injuries, it definitely showcases how good the Rams are and obviously how injured the Buccaneers at this point. Bridgewater, hands off to Tucker again. And that's a 5-yard run up the middle. Nate Landman with the tackle. Landman, 3rd down and 2 at the Rams 40. And Rachaad White up the middle. 1st down, Bucks. What's wrong with his hair, Tame? Are you racist? What's wrong with his hair? Nothing. Loss of 2 by Rachaad White. 2nd down and 12 at the Rams 38. Crazy, a lot of people thought, the Rams wouldn't be able to really be the same team without Aaron Donald. Sean McVay has definitely proved them wrong. 2nd down and 12, shotgun set, Bridgewater. Nice pass there, Tez Johnson. 3rd down and 1 at the Rams 27. Oh, looks like he dropped it. After the replay, that ball looked like it hit the ground after we're watching it here. So that should be probably incomplete. Nothing going our way, I guess. But again, that's, when it rains, it pours. The Rams do have good scouts as well. And again, if I had a choice of any coach in the NFL for the Buccaneers, McVay would be my number one. Not just based off this game, but just based on what he's been able to do, in his career. Fantastic coach, and again, they have a great scouting group. They find gems, late, 3rd round, 4th round, 5th round, 6th round, 7th round. They arguably, they might end up having the best scouting, roster, in Los Angeles out of any team in the NFL. They're very, very disciplined, and they're able to find, players that not only fit their system, but that can also play on any team on a very, very high level. Yeah, the only problem is with Shanahan, he can't coach in the 4th quarter in the big game. He hasn't been able to figure that out, but definitely a good coach, but 3rd down and 12, and shotgun set. Bridgewater scrambles up the middle for a 6-yard gain, avoiding the sack lunch, and it's 4th down and 6 at the Rams 32. I think Hurts is great. I think, normally he's a top 5, top 10 quarterback. But again, this year, the offense has struggled, compared to last year. But again, they're not getting the same production out of Saquon Barkley. If Saquon Barkley was producing, then obviously to the level that he was last year, then, Jalen's numbers would even be better. But I think Jalen is great. And to me, Jalen's more in the top 5 category rather than 6 through 10, in my opinion. I would take Jalen on the Bucs in a heartbeat. 4th down and 8. And there we go. Look at that. 1st down, Cade Otton. Move the chains. Nice job, Teddy. Teddy, 2 gloves. Let's go. Come on, Teddy. Come on, Teddy. Let's go, baby. Man in motion. Tucker off the right guard. And looks like a 2-yard gain there for Sean Tucker. 2nd down and 8 at the Rams 18. I mean, if we can just get to 20-plus points before this game is over, that'll make me feel good. But at that point, how many do the Rams have? Like 50? Probably, but hopefully we can at least be somewhat respectable, like get blown out by 20 rather than 40. Poona Ford. Yeah, I do too. Can't wait for baseball season with the Mariners starting in March. Second down and 8. Shotgun set for Bridgewater. Pressure up the middle. Floater in the back of the end zone in no man's land. Incomplete. Sterling Shepard, the intended receiver. They're looking for a holding call there on the secondary, but they will not get it. And I feel like our offense is better than what we've displayed here today, but our defense is definitely exactly what we've been for the last month and a half. We just haven't gone against an elite quarterback, running back, wide receiver tandem like this yet. And this is the first time that we've gotten blown out this year. But again, the defense has not been good, for quite some time, which is painful for me. Pass incomplete. Ibuka. Forbes was in coverage there. It's like we need Bucky, we need Evans, we need Godwin, we need everyone. McMillan. 4th down and 9 at the Rams, 18. Take the field goal. Take the field goal. And I know, obviously the game is over, but it's like, I want to get us to at least 20 if possible. If that means 2 field goals and a touchdown, take it, because again, what are the chances that Teddy actually gets this here? We'll find out, I guess. But I don't like the 4th down call on the other end before the first half, and I don't like this one. And look at that. It's 12 noon. You know what time it is? Time for a sack lunch. Yum, 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 yum. And another bad call. And that's what happens when you got shitty coordinators and a shitty coach. You come up with dumb shit like that. Take the fucking points. I mean, it's like, just because you're down 31-7 doesn't mean that you have to play like you're playing in Madden on rookie mode, where you're just going for it on 4th down no matter where you are on the field. Ay, ay, ay. And it's not like Baker's back there. It was the backup. I mean, that is a good question for Pete Alonso. I mean, there'll be definitely a few teams that are interested in whatnot, but, we'll have to wait to see. It's going to be kind of a domino effect, with the signings. Once we end up, obviously Naylor was the first to kind of get the party started, but once the, dominoes start falling, then you'll see like who's left, to be able to make the judgment on the 2 or 3 teams that, he might be considering. And obviously Alonso's going to want a lot of money. So that's already going to be out for many, many teams because they're not going to want to pay what he wants. So there will only be a few teams that actually want him, that actually have the money to afford him. So Bridgewater sacked on that last play by Kobe Turner, who's a fantastic player with Jared Verse. I wish we had a Kobe Turner and a Jared Verse on the Buccaneers. And if we did, maybe we would be a little bit better than we are here today. But haven't had a good pass rusher in fucking years. 7:48 left in the third quarter, 31-7 Rams. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on the dono train. And 5 to 15 subs. Let's get it, baby. Shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. All right, we're at 47 likes, 53 to hit goal. If you're in the room and haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Yeah, and again, sometimes you got to crawl before you walk. And again, the Mariners are going in the right direction, and there's a very good possibility that we will make, a World Series in the next 5 to 10 years. And who knows, it could be as early as next year. We just got to keep plugging away. But just the simple fact that we got Cal and Julio and Naylor, for the next 5 years together, we should have a good chance in the next 5 years to make at least one World Series appearance. And again, we may not win, the first time that we go, but hopefully we can find a way to win the pennant at some point. Stafford, short middle to Puka, 10-yard gain. First down and 10 at the Rams 37. (31-7) Rams, and with a couple more big plays, they'll be threatening momentarily. Stafford on first down and 10. Little check down, missed tackle, and Jordan Whittington making the Buccaneers look silly. Like, when I watch this game, I feel like I'm watching like varsity versus freshmen. Like, we're not even on the same level, and it's just sickening. Especially when Tampa normally prides themselves on defense, but you have to have the personnel, and we clearly do not. I mean, besides Vita Vea, Levante David, and Antoine Winfield Jr., love them. And, Tyke Smith, there's a few guys, but the main three, are going to be Vita Vea up front, Levante David in the middle, and Antoine Winfield Jr. on the back end. So it's like those guys are fantastic, but 3 out of 11 ain't going to cut it against a defense, going against an elite offense like this. First down and 10, and finally a good defensive play by the Buccaneers and Levante David with the tackle. 5-yard loss there from Blake Corum. Second down and 15 at the Rams 45. Double team rate on Via, 64%. Shotgun set. Stafford. And a middle. Ooh, nice catch there by Davis Allen. 7-yard grab. Third down and 8 at the Tampa 48. I mean, if you want to know what a Super Bowl team looks like, look at the Rams and look at the games that they've played this year. They have no weaknesses. And normally when we talk about teams, even in Super Bowl caliber, usually there's a weakness somewhere, but there is not a weakness on this team. O-line, D-line, defense, coaching, play calling, quarterback, running back, wide receivers, tight end, nothing. Third down and 8, shotgun set for Stafford, pass incomplete, deep right to Puka, incomplete. Fourth down and 8 at the Tampa 48. And that was nowhere near any receiver that time, as Puka was double covered. Yeah, and it definitely sucks when you get stomped on prime time, and it's not like the Bucs are going to have too many games on prime time, but, if anything, it shows the world, that the Rams, might be the best team in football, especially in the NFC. There's no doubt about that. Eagles are too, at least, at the moment, but again, even against the AFC teams, after what you've seen today, could the Broncos, the Patriots, or the Colts beat this Rams team? I don't know. And maybe the Broncos would have maybe the best chance, at least to stop the Rams defensively and maybe even getting points. But would Bo be able to get enough points on the Ram defense? I don't know. They don't have enough weapons on their offense at the moment, but they're still a very good team. All right, Evans with the punt and Cameron Johnson, fair caught. First down and 10 at the Tampa Bay 8. First blowout of the year and the only blowout of the year. Just sucks that it had to be on Sunday night, you know, in front of the global audience, but that's how the cookie crumbles sometimes. And I think, you know, after every, you know, loss, you know, things get, you know, a little bit more difficult, but Eagles, Seahawks, Niners, Lions, Patriots, Buffalo, Bills, and the Rams. So obviously, you know, we lost to Philly, beat Seattle, beat the Niners, lost to Detroit, beat the Saints, and then obviously lost to New England, lost to Buffalo, and now we're going to lose to the Rams. And, you know, when you play 3 quality teams in a row, you know, and you have injuries, it's hard to get your confidence up, you know, especially when you had that type of schedule. You know, Patriots, Bills, and then fucking Rams. Are you kidding me? But, you know, I guess that's where, you know, we stand. But I am looking forward to the easier schedule the rest of the way. But again, you know, we have so many injuries. There's no question that, you know, it's not going to be an easy 6 wins, even though the teams are not very good. Cardinals, Saints, Falcons, Panthers, Dolphins, Panthers. And those 2 Panther games are going to be critical to try to win the NFC South. So I feel like, you know, all of those games are winnable, the last 6. So we could still go, you know, 12-5 after we go from 6-4 today to 6-5 after this loss. But, you know, if we're not careful and we have injuries, you know, the Panthers potentially could. Like if the Panthers swept the Bucks and then we struggled with one of the other teams, you know, the Panthers would end up winning the division. I don't want that, but we'll see where things go. And we got the Panthers and Niners tomorrow, which should be fun. Bridgewater hands off. But again, if Baker is out for the year, you know, or, you know, has an injury and is out for a while, you know, that definitely will hurt our chances 100%. You know, like, why did you even throw the Hail Mary pass towards the end? Not only did it get intercepted, you fucking hurt yourself. Yeah, but who does Bo have to throw to? Cortland Sutton and Troy Franklin, and you got R.J. Harvey? Come on, dude. You know, if you give any quarterback those weapons, I mean, are they going to be a good team offensively? Probably not, you know. It's like even if you have Josh Allen or Lamar throwing to, you know, R.J. Harvey in the backfield or Cortland Sutton or, you know, Troy Franklin, I mean, obviously you'd probably be able to get a little bit more out of Allen and Lamar to Cortland Sutton, but it's not like they have all these amazing pieces on the Bronco offense. They're very thin, and that's the reason why they can't really move the ball. And then J.K. Dobbins obviously just got hurt and is out, so it's like you have to also understand who they have and the reason why they're struggling on offense. They don't really have a lot to work with. Didn't have a lot to work with last year, and they don't have a whole lot to work with this year on offense either. Now, if they end up getting more weapons, and then they still play like that, then that's a different story. But, you know, I want to be able to see them build that offense, and then I do think that Bo will be better, you know, but he doesn't really have a whole lot to work with. Now it's 4th down and 1 after that K-Dot and catch there from Bridgewater. 4th down and 1 at the Tampa Bay 17. Yeah, and Bo is better than Rex Grossman, my guy. You obviously didn't watch Duck football. Bucks with the punt by Riley Dixon. 8-yard return there by Kyron Williams. And the Rams are on their way after the commercial break to potentially score another touchdown. Now, Baker is done today. And again, Baker might be done for, you know, the rest of the season. I don't know. You know, we'll have to wait and find out to see how serious that AC joint or shoulder is. He could miss a week or 2. He could miss a month. You know, season could be over. So, and obviously if Baker is out for the year, once we find out with like an MRI, you know, tomorrow, you know, if that is the case, then, you know, our season's done. You know, even with the easy schedule, we're not going to be able to win games with fucking Teddy Bridgewater. You know, especially, you know, you got the Cardinals, you got the Saints, you got the Falcons, the Panthers, the Dolphins, and the Panthers. And even though those games sound winnable, but if Bridgewater is the quarterback for those 6 games, I mean, how many are we going to actually win? Maybe a couple? Maybe? I mean, obviously things are definitely not going our way. And, you know, I'm just not used to these, you know, types of injuries. But again, it's part of the game. Yeah, but Baker is not coming back into the game. He obviously pads are off. He's in a sweatshirt on the sideline. So, and I think that the injury probably is pretty serious because, you know, Baker is a competitor. We haven't got blown out all year. And if Baker can play, he would be out there. So obviously he'll be out for probably a minimum of like a couple weeks, but it could be as serious as out for the year. We'll find out, you know, tomorrow morning after the MRI. But, you know, just because we're getting smacked, you know, Baker is not the type of guy to be like, well, we're getting smacked. Let's, you know, he's going to be the guy that tries to make the comeback, even though we might still get blasted, you know. So that definitely tells me that it's definitely more serious than, you know, maybe some people are leading on. Yeah, you know, and again, I wouldn't wish, you know, the injuries that the Niners and the Buccaneers have had this year. And, you know, hopefully it won't be your guys' favorite team, you know, later this year or in the future. But, you know, it's one thing to have a healthy team and you play bad. But when you're injured, you know, and you have to rely on others, you know, it's nothing is worse than that. On top of not being able to stop a nosebleed on defense when we're normally a defensive-oriented team. So, you know, everything is trickling down now. Defense sucks. Offense now with no Baker stinks, you know, and the Rams are the best team in the NFL, looking like they're going to win the Super Bowl this year. But again, a lot can change between now and the end of the season and in the playoffs. So, but Davante Adams with another acrobatic catch towards the sideline. And good for him, you know, to have a rebirth in his career when he tried to pair up with Rodgers and people thought, his career is over. He's on a downward slide. And now joining, you know, Stafford, you know, looking like one of the best wide receivers in the game with JSN, you know, on the Hawks. So, you know, I hate seeing my Buccaneers lose, but I'll never quit on this team. You know, I'm always going to be a fan, you know, but it's also nice to be able to see, you know, people, you know, kind of reinvent themselves. And Davante Adams has clearly done that, and good for him. Well, the thing that was holding the Lions back was obviously the defense. You know, again, you know, they did have some injuries, and the offense, you know, was great. And Ben Johnson was a great play caller. I mean, look what he's doing with the Bears. So now they don't have Ben Johnson, and now their offense isn't as good, and their defense is not that great either. You know, and again, you know, they got beat by the Commanders because they couldn't play D, and even if they beat the Commanders, they weren't going to beat the Eagles last year. You know. And it really does show you got to have a good defense. You know, defense wins games, defense wins championships. So, and it's like the Lions might have missed that window, you know, but again, it's like they still have a great, you know, offense, you know, player for player. But again, without the proper play calling, you know, it's like they go for it on fourth down and they don't get the conversions anymore. Why? Because they don't have Ben Johnson, because he's not, you know, fucking Dan Campbell calling plays over Ben Johnson. It's a huge downgrade, you know, and that's why the Lions aren't as good as they were last year. You know, and you got to have some kind of defense. And the Lions defense, you know, sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. And that's kind of the, you know, the case for a lot of the others in the NFC. You know, sometimes the Bucs have a D, sometimes they don't. Sometimes the Hawks defense is there, sometimes it's not. Sometimes the Lions and Packers have a D, sometimes it's not there. Cowboys sometimes have a D, sometimes they don't. You know, and at the beginning of the year it wasn't there, but lately it's been getting better. I mean, they shut out the Eagles today in the second half. I don't think I've seen the Eagles shut out in a second half all year. So, you know, and obviously being a divisional opponent helped with that as well. And Dak is underrated. You know, he's a good quarterback. Shotgun set, handoff up the middle. And Kyron Williams falling forward for a 9-yard gain. Second down and 1 at the Tampa Bay 40. All right, take care, Andrea. Yep, 100%. Offensive line, 100%. The Ragnow, yeah, you hit it right on the head. Losing both of those individuals made a huge, impact, on that team. And again, you still got Gibbs and Montgomery and Amon-Ra, and then obviously losing Laporta on top of that too. With the injury, he'll be out for the year, but the offensive line, not the same. You don't got one of the best play callers in the game with Ben Johnson available. I mean, who the hell thought that Ben Johnson in his first year after leaving the Lions would go to the rival Bears and they would have the record that they have? Nobody. Even Bears fans are like in shock right now, that this is happening, and again, when you end up seeing what the Bears have for weapons, right? And then you end up seeing what he's been able to do in year one, and obviously the insufficiencies of what Detroit has tried to do this year, it all kind of comes together. Patriots are 10-2, Bills are 7-4, Ravens are 6-5. They're going to end up winning the division and they'll take over the Steelers. Colts are 8-3, Jags are 7-4, and then you got the Broncos at 9-2, Chargers at 7-4, and the Chiefs hanging on by a thread at 6-5. Then you got the Eagles at 8-3, Cowboys are 5-5, but they look like they could be a wild card team. Bears are 8-3, Packers are 7-3, Lions are 7-4. I don't think anyone had the Bears being in first place, and they're good at home and on the road, which is surprising. Bucks at 6-4. We're going to drop to 6-5. Panthers are 6-5. And again, if they want to win the division, beating the Niners tomorrow would be huge for them. And then obviously Rams are 8-2, Hawks 8-3, Niners 7-4. So that's kind of how things are kind of stacking up at this point. So. Yeah, but you got to give credit where credit is due. You know what I mean? Like, we're talking about the Bears, a team that normally is in last place, that wins like 3 to 5 games a year. So, regardless if they're playing some shitty teams, normally the Bears are a shitty team, and essentially they have the same roster from last year, essentially, right? Maybe a few, pieces here and there, but, like even if they were 500, it would be talked about. Like, wow, the Bears are doing, better. Even if the Bears were like 5-5, it would be like, oh, but to be 8-3, no one had that on their bingo card. Not even Bears fans. 4-1 at home, 4-2 on the road. But the real key stat is their differential, which is -3. Which is crazy because normally when you have a good record, right? Like the Packers are +61 in differential. The Lions are +83, right? The Rams are +100. Hawks are +107. Eagles are +30. Broncos are +65. Colts are +112, right? The Ravens are +14. The Patriots are +92. The Bills are +59. The Bears are the only elite team with a -3. So obviously they've won a lot of close games. And again, that's a wild stat, to not even have a plus and you have an 8-3 record. But again, coaching has a big part of that. So 3-yard run by Kyron Williams. First down and 10 at the Tampa 37 as we're in the fourth quarter. But again, how many games are decided by 3 to 7 points in the NFL? A lot, right? But regardless if you're a good, bad, or a mid team, right? A lot of games are decided by 3 to 7 one-possession games. So, it really depends on, like the Chiefs. They were very good in one-possession games last year. This year, not so much. And that reflects the record that they have. If you can find a way to win games late, you're going to have a great 8-3, 8-2, type of record. If not, you might end up being 500 or a game above or a game below like the Chiefs. So that's kind of the story. And a 3-yard gain up the middle there by Kyron. Second down and 7 at the Tampa Bay 34. Yeah, and it's not like the Bears are a Super Bowl contender. You would assume, even with the Packers and the Lions, setbacks, you would assume that those teams would be better, but we got to wait to see how things play out. And Stafford, bootleg, incomplete, intended receiver towards that sideline. Braswell with the coverage on Puka. 3rd down and 7 at the Tampa Bay 34. Yeah, well, obviously Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly have not done a good job, but again, what do they have to work with? Brock Bowers and Ashton Genty, and that's it. Offensive line not there. Defense stinks besides Max Crosby. It's like you got 3 players that can play football, out of 22 starters. Eventually you're going to get fired. So, and the Buckeyes are, still potentially going to win another championship even without him. Towards the sideline and complete. Terrence Ferguson. Plus, Chip does better in college anyways. So, Mevis is coming out. But it's like not only don't they have a whole lot to work with, but again, it's like when you have a combination with Carroll and Chip, and after Chip won essentially the Natty for Ohio State for Ryan Day, they thought, ooh, maybe he'll be able to do the same type of thing. But again, coaching young men and grown-ass men that have egos is completely different. And, again, that division is tough. Chiefs, Chargers, Broncos, you're at the bottom. So, and they might end up being at the bottom for quite a long time. And kick is up and good. Nevis with a nice field goal there. 52-yarder, 34-7 Rams. And I'll be definitely happy when this one is over. This will be the only blowout for the Buccaneers all year, but, I don't know what is more painful, the Baker Mayfield injury or this loss or both. So, they could have waited to fire Chip, until the end of the year, but I think they've given him quite a bit of time. But again, it's like Geno with not a very good offensive line. What do you expect? You got Ashton Genty, but he's a rookie. He needs a good offensive line to put up the big numbers. Doesn't have that. Will be able to get in the end zone from time to time because he's a beast. But if you don't have an O-line, eventually, he's going to get banged up or he won't be as productive. And then Brock Bowers is a stud, but it's not like you can throw to Brock 30 times a game, so... And I love Max Crosby. He's the best player on the whole organization. He's kind of the soul of the team. The only problem is they don't have anyone else besides him, and it's hard to win games when you got one good player on D and not really anybody else. So, yeah. Well, when you lose games, nobody's getting along. Let's be real. There's going to be tension in the locker room no matter what, but it's not like Pete is going to be able to dial up better plays than Chip. It's like based on what you have to work with. If Chip called plays and it didn't work, it's not like Pete would do better. Like there's not, you could put Ben Johnson on there and it's not like they would get that much better. You just don't have the personnel, Obviously the play calling with Ben Johnson would be better for the Raiders and you would get more out of him, but it's not like it would turn them into a playoff team. But hopefully one day, they'll, climb the ranks and they'll be like a wild card team. Obviously that's the goal, to at least go 10-7 in the next 5 to 10 years. But, based on how good the Chargers are with Harbaugh, Andy Reid with Mahomes and Kelsey, even though that run seems like it's kind of coming to an end, but they can always rebuild. And then obviously you got the Broncos at the top, no matter who they get, they still be on the bottom, for quite some time. That's a very, competitive division, if not the most competitive division in football. Obviously we know with the Rams and the Hawks, in the NFC West as well, pretty competitive there. Rams, Hawks, Niners, Cardinals. So essentially the Raiders are the Cardinals in that division. So AFC West, NFC West, 3 deep, and then you got that other team. So if you don't have Slater, on the line and you don't have Alt, at some point, they have a lot of talent on the roster, but they normally can't win playoff games. That's just been kind of the Chargers' curse. They've been injured quite a bit as well. Every single year they have talent, but every single year, the injury bug hits them. And, but now it feels like they have a little bit more confidence with Harbaugh as the coach, but Harbaugh can't prevent injuries. Bridgewater on 1st down and 10, deep middle to Ibuka, incomplete. Oh, this is maddening. Fucking Teddy Bridgewater out there. Jesus Christ. I mean, it would still be bad with Kyle Trask if he was on the team, but it's like, what am I watching? Sean King? Josh Freeman? Yeah, but it's not necessarily all on Herbert, too. It's more on the defense. You know, the defense for the Chargers, you know, even though they had names, that's what let them down more times than not. Herbert's a good quarterback. Lad McConkey is a good wide receiver. You know, they had to do a rebuild and a retool, you know, after they let Eckler, Mike Williams, and, Keenan Allen go, and then Keenan came back, you know. But, again, it's, you know, I don't think it's really a Herbert thing. You know, it's more of a defensive thing that has let them down more times than not, and injuries. And passing complete to Ibuka, 3rd down and 10. I would agree with that. If the Chiefs somehow pass the Chargers, they would have a better chance, even though they've looked shaky this year. I would agree with that. Mahomes, Kelsey, even though they've been on and off, you know, you still got Chris Jones, you got Spags, you got Andy Reid, and you have the experience. So even though they have been shaky, yeah, I would agree with that. I don't know if they could beat a lot of the other teams, you know, like Buffalo or the Ravens or the Colts or the Patriots or the Broncos, but yeah, but the Chargers, if you're talking about like the bottom teams, like the Chiefs could beat the Chargers, the Chiefs could beat the Jags, you would think, but again, we will see. Defensive holding there on the Rams after Bridgewater is sacked. 12 noon, you know what time it is? Another Ram sack lunch. Yum, 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 yum. 34-7 Rams. And a big 16-yard run there by Rachaad White. Pushed out of bounds. Emmanuel Forbes Jr. with the coverage. 1st down, Buccaneers. Let's go. I mean, I want us to try to get to 20 before this game is over, but I don't know. We got to be able to get a touchdown here in the next 4 minutes. Come on, Bucks. But ultimately, it comes down to you have to have balance, you know. And again, if you have a good offense but not a good defense, or a really good defense and not, you know, shaky offense, you know, you got to be able to be well balanced to be able to go all the way. You know, it's like you haven't really seen a Super Bowl winner be good on one side and not good on the other and win it all. It's always a team that is well balanced, offense, defense, and special teams. And how many teams are really, really good on offense, defense, and special teams? Not many. A couple. Offensive holding there on the Bucks. What's new? 1st down and 20 at the Tampa Bay 46. Bridgewater short right to Sterling Shepard for 2 yards. 2nd down and 18 at the Tampa Bay 48. I imagine some Seahawk fans believe that, you know, and you have an opinion being a diehard fan of the team, you know. They may not be on the top tier, you know, with the Rams and the Eagles, but they're definitely one of the best teams on the 2nd tier. Maybe they're the best team in the 2nd tier after those 2 teams. Like to say that the Hawks would be right after the Rams and the Eagles, I think that you could say that. I think I like the Hawks more than the Lions or the Packers. And at this point, with our injuries, the Buccaneers, you know, the Cowboys, or, you know, any other Panthers or any other team, Niners that are in the mix, I think, you know, Seahawks are number 3, you know, and that's a pretty special thing to be able to say, you know, as long as you guys don't have any major injuries between now and the playoffs, you know, Rams, Eagles, Hawks. I think that's pretty, you know, pretty consistent. So Well, the Eagles aren't better than the Rams if they can't score points against the Cowboys and they lost today. So, Eagles are not better than the Rams at this point in the season. Maybe you even go Seahawks even over Eagles at this point. I got to be able to see, how this Eagle offense is going to be able to adjust. The defense and the special teams is awesome for the Eagles, but the offense has been sputtering at times, which is weird, but that's what we're getting this year. And Bridgewater, incomplete short right to Tucker, 2nd down and 10 at the LA 20. Yeah, but it kind of feels like if it ends up being Rams or Eagles representing the NFC, they're going all the way. Broncos D is great. Bo Nix in the offense, not so much. Patriots and Colts have a good offense and defense, but they lack experience. And then you got the Chiefs and the Bills and the Ravens, which are normally the top 3 teams, right? But they're not as good as they were in previous years. So, it's tough to say, who's going to come out of the AFC between now and obviously the playoffs. So, and look at Baker's got his arm in a sling. That's great. I love seeing Baker injured with his arm in a sling. Nothing makes me happier. Fuck my life. Jesus Christ, that's terrible. So I told you he was more injured than they let on, because there's no way that Baker would be sitting out. He doesn't have that, mentality. Even if we're getting blasted 50-0, he's out there. So. And Rachaad White, 4-yard pass. And Cameron Kitchens with another tackle, 4th down and 3 at the Rams 13. Yeah, it's a very cruel sport. You lose your quarterback, running back, wide receivers, key offensive linemen like Herbert did with Rashad Slater and Joe Alt. That could change the whole dynamic, moving forward. Lions losing their O coordinator, Lions losing a couple offensive line beasts. A lot can change, from the off season to the next season, or between now as we go to the playoffs. An injury here, injury there could change the landscape completely. Like if Baker's out for the year, the Panthers are probably going to win the NFC South now. They won't beat anybody, but and a big sack lunch on Teddy Bridgewater, Jared Verse doing Jared Verse things. It's 12 noon. You know what time it is? Time for another sack lunch. Yum, 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 yum. Teddy. Yeah, I think the Packers are probably the worst good team in the NFC, if that makes sense. Out of all of the teams, that are kind of good, I think they're probably the worst one out of the good teams. But now, obviously, if Baker's injury is significant, there goes our chances of, trying to win a game or making a run to the NFC Championship game. That dream is gone, and painful to say, but but again, if you are a Rams fan, an Eagle fan, a Seahawk fan, you got to feel pretty good. And then below them, you have the Bears and the Lions and the Packers, all 3 of those teams, right? And then obviously Buccaneers, Panthers, Cowboys, at the very Niners at the very bottom now, so. Yeah, they had a great year last year, and no one expected them to beat the Lions, but Jaden Daniels didn't really have the sophomore slump like a lot of quarterbacks do, like CJ Stroud did in his sophomore year. It's just injuries. And, we always say how brutal this NFL sport is. Injuries, are something that will just derail you right from the gate. And, I just wish the Niners and the Buccaneers weren't so banged up right from the very start, but sometimes that happens. Now, NFC is much deeper than the AFC. There's no doubt about that. So, yeah, Packers, Lions, Bears, they're hoping that they can play like, the Cowboys, the Buccaneers, the Panthers, like a team like that. So that way they would go. But, but if you're the Packers, Lions, and Bears, and you have to go against the, the Rams or the Eagles or the Seahawks, maybe they feel the most confident against Seattle, because they haven't been like a playoff team year in and year out. But, also home field advantage would play a key in some of those matchups. As we know, Seattle sometimes, will play good at home and sometimes not as good on the road. But things have changed in the Sam Darnold era, where they're starting to win games on the road, which has kind of been every team's bugaboo, but the Hawks have started to kind of figure, out, road wins as well. So. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on the dono train, and 5 to 15 subs. Stafford, hands off. And Blake Corum with a 1-yard gain. Parrish with the tackle. Gained 5 subs since the last commercial break from a few commercial breaks ago. 29 subs to go to 23,300. Shout out to the 5 new subs that we've acquired within the last half hour to hour. Appreciate you. Well, obviously we saw what happened to Darnold in the playoffs last year after going 14-3. Absolutely played terrible. But again, JSN, playing like he's the best receiver in the game besides Davante Adams. Offensive line improved, defense improved. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. I mean, as long as they don't have a whole lot of major injuries to the O-line and the defense, Darnold will be just fine. Obviously, every once in a while, you're going to have a horrible game like he did against the Rams with the 4 picks, but that's not something that you're going to see weekly. Once or twice a season, you might see a bad game like that out of Darnold, but for the most part, he's going to be good. And Corum up the middle for a 7-yard run. 4th down and 1 at the Rams 34. But I also think it shows the Seahawks fans that even though the Rams are rivals like the Niners, there's a different, category of where the Rams are this year. This isn't the Rams from last year, who could have ended up going to the Super Bowl and almost beat the Eagles in the NFC Championship game. I mean, we're talking about a couple plays here or there. They could have ended up winning that game, and they've taken another step by obviously adding Davante Adams this year, and Stafford's playing better football this year than last year. So there's a number of things that are, going in the Rams' favor here in 2025. So, and sometimes you got to lose before you end up winning the big one. And the Rams are punting on 4th and inches, which is wild. But that is the correct call. But Seahawks fans shouldn't be, again, when you end up, having 4 picks and you only lose by a couple, that shows how good the Hawks are. Because again, a lot of teams that would have 4 interceptions by their quarterback, the Rams would be doing this, normally to the Hawks, winning by like a big amount. But you guys were still able to combat, the turnovers and still find a way. So, that's why I feel like right now, Rams, Eagles, Seahawks, and obviously the Bears got a great record, but again, we got to be able to see, the Bears play some better competition, and how will they play those teams? And I'm not talking playing the Lions and the Packers. Those teams are within the division. Anybody can beat anyone, but I want to see what the Bears do against the others. I want to look at I'm going to look real quick to see what we got cooking here with the Bears. All right, they're 8-3, first in the NFC. So they dropped the first 2 games of the year to the Vikings and the Lions. And then they beat Dallas, beat Raiders, beat Commanders, beat Saints, lost to the Ravens, beat the Bengals, beat the Giants, beat the Vikings, and beat the Steelers. So they haven't really beat anybody good, really. Besides the Cowboys, and that's about it, So, but then it gets a little bit tougher, right? You're going to play the Eagles. The Bears are, on Friday after Thanksgiving. And now if the Bears beat the Eagles, then we can give them credit. Then they play Green Bay, then they play Cleveland, then they play Green Bay again, then they play the Niners, and then they play Detroit. So again, we're going to find out if the Bears are for real or are they pretenders that just, played an easy schedule? Got to give Ben Johnson credit, for them to be at 8-3, but obviously there's a reason why they don't have a plus, on the differential, because they played a bunch of shitty teams. Maybe one of the easiest schedules within the first 12 weeks, but the last 6 weeks are going to be one of the toughest out of any team. Eagles, Packers, Browns, Packers, Niners, Lions. The only hard one, or the only easy one, might be the Browns, and all the others are tough. Kind of a similar slate that the Buccaneers had, in the 2-month stretch. So we will find out, and I don't think anyone anticipates the Bears making the playoffs, even though they are 8-3, but we will find out, in this last 6-week stretch, if the Bears are good enough or not to be able to make it. So. Yeah, and their wins, 31-14 against Dallas, 25-24 against the Raiders, 25-24 against Washington, 26-14 against the Saints, 47-42 against the Bengals, 24-20 against the Giants, 19-17 against the Vikings, and 31-28 versus the Steelers. So, and the only reason that their plus minus is in the minus is because they got blown out, in those, the second game. Detroit beat them 52-21, and then they lost to the Vikings in game 1, 27-24. So if they didn't lose by $1 billion in game 2 against the Lions, they would have a plus, in the plus minus differential, based on scoring more points than your opponents this year. They're the only team with an above 500 elite record at like a -3, and I don't think I've ever seen that before. Tucker running towards that right side for no gain. Josiah Stewart with the tackle, 2nd down and 10 at the Rams 48. And Bridgewater on 2nd down and 10. Shotgun set, incomplete. 3rd down and 10. Oh, this is brutal. Shotgun set, Bridgewater, short left to Sterling Shepard. 3-yard gain, 4th down and 7 at the Rams 45. I mean, nothing is worse, when you're getting blasted, and then the only guy that can help you score points in Baker Mayfield gets injured. I mean, we finally get Godwin back after being out for pretty much the whole year, and then Baker gets hurt. I mean, make it stop. I'm sick and tired of these injuries. And again, this has been the most beat up Buccaneer team, that I've seen in probably 30 years. And again, if Baker is out, the Panthers are going to end up winning the NFC South. Because I don't think I can really have any kind of confidence in Teddy Bridgewater, even if we're playing shitty teams. I don't think we're going to be able to beat those shitty teams. Even as shitty as like the Cardinals and the Dolphins and, some of those teams are, Teddy's terrible. And then Riley Dixon with the punt. Yeah, well, if, we didn't have the depth that we have, we would probably only have 2 or 3 wins right now. We would be, obviously, there's, some coaching and depth involved, but it's not like we have a Kyle Shanahan on the squad. Todd Bowles is definitely replaceable. Yeah, it's not good. Yeah. Baker is going to be out for a minimum of probably a couple weeks, but it could be season ending, depending on if it's a shoulder separation, AC joint, or something of that nature. So, I mean, it was already, bad enough, to lose in the ALCS Game 7 with the Mariners, and now I got to deal with this. I guess the only bright side for me is that the Ducks are 10-1, and, they might be able to make the college football playoff, deep run, possibly, even though the Buckeyes and the Hoosiers look great, as well as A&M and Georgia. But we are a top 5 team, 3 top, 5 teams in the Big Ten, with the Ohio State Buckeyes, Indiana Hoosiers, and the Oregon Ducks. But oh man, oh man, oh man. And then the Blazers and the Kraken are young, but they're showing some flash. But again, unless you're a bandwagon fan, you're not going to have all your teams be great at the same time. But I definitely did not anticipate Baker getting injured today. It was like right before halftime, he tried to throw a Hail Mary and then injured himself. And it got intercepted on top of that. So insult to injury. Unless he got injured the play before that, but it looked like that play with the interception is where he, kind of tweaked the shoulder joint or, AC joint or shoulder. So Kyren Williams with a 4-yard run. McCollum and Dennis with the tackle. First down and 10 at the Rams 33. Yeah, we're in. I mean, we're going to, we'll see what happens against the Huskies, but we're going to get in. Even if we were to lose to the Huskies, we're still in. But, I'm not sure how deep we're going to go. I mean, I do like this team better than last year's, but, we've had a lot of injuries to the wide receiver position for the Ducks this year. Defense has been pretty healthy. O-line and wide receiver have been banged up, so we'll see how it goes. And Kyren Williams running backwards, and Tyke Smith with a nice tackle there, loss of 5. Second and 15 at the Rams 28. Well, they don't have injuries, so it doesn't matter. If the Rams want to cook, let them cook. They haven't had any major injuries, let them keep cooking. It doesn't hurt my feelings, Again, if I was the Rams and I didn't have injuries all year, keep the starters out there. Handoff. And a nice 6-yard run there by Kyren Williams. Third down and 9 at the Rams 34. And it's not like Stafford's going to be throwing too many more passes the rest of the way. I mean, they're just trying to run the ball, and bleed the clock. So it's not like Stafford is going to pull a Baker Mayfield and fuck his shoulder up by making a dumbass interception or deep Hail Mary. So, and if Stafford were to throw a Hail Mary, it would connect to Devontae Adams or Puka Nacua for a touchdown, not an interception. So. But again, this is our first blowout of the season, and I'm more concerned about Baker than the actual loss itself. The Rams are Super Bowl contenders and look like the best team in the NFL to me. And I was just really hoping that the Bucs could make a run to try, to get to the NFC Championship game, but it's just not going to happen this year. Even if Baker didn't get hurt, it's not going to happen this year. Not good enough defensively. Too many injuries to the running back, wide receiver, O-line position, and the Buccaneer defense that normally prides itself on being good is terrible. At least lately, they have been. And that's a 2-minute warning. We're at 56 likes, 44 to go to goal. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. See if we can get to at least 60 or 65 before the game is over. Hit that like button on your way out, and obviously before the stream obviously ends. Congratulations to the Rams. Any doubters or haters, thinking that the Rams weren't the real deal and the best team in the NFC. Clearly they are. And even if we had all our players healthy, we weren't winning this game. I can honestly admit that. for me, I like Gus Johnson and Joel Klatt. Those are my favorite announcers. They do college, and I do like, what I get from Jim Nantz and Tony Romo. I think they are the best in the NFL, even though, they do AFC games primarily, but. Three-yard run there by Owen Wright. Second down and 7 at the Tampa Bay 32. And a loss of 1 there by Owen Wright. Sean Dolak with the tackle. Third down and 8 at the Tampa 31. And I just, feel bad for the NFL, fans across the world. We're not this bad. We're not 7 points, bad, but again, with all the injuries and then fucking Baker getting hurt, just wish we would have been able to have Baker healthy the rest of the way. And I think that we would have been able to get, maybe 14 to 17 points, maybe another touchdown and maybe a field goal. Still would have lost 34-17, but that's better than losing 34-7. But really what the concern is now is Baker Mayfield being potentially out for the year. And, that definitely is not ideal, seeing Baker in a sling like that. My heart hurts. He is the heart and soul of the team. And, for him to have that sling, that fucking hurts. It's not like we were going to go to the Super Bowl and win it this year anyways, but, it kind of felt like we might be able to make a run at some point, earlier in the season. Maybe we could overachieve and make the NFC Championship game, but just not in the cards this year. So, congratulations to the Rams and the Ramily. You guys kicked our ass, and you are the best team in the NFC and arguably the best team in the NFL, and you proved it again. And I will be very happy to, cover them, the rest of the year as we, go through the playoffs and everything else and any other primetime games that they're on. Hopefully Baker Mayfield will be back, before the season is over, because, I don't want the Panthers to win the NFC South, but we'll wait and see. We will be live tomorrow for the Panthers and the 49ers. I think that's going to be a great game. And again, we'll see how that one plays out. Tuesday and Wednesday will be off. Tuesday off. Wednesday, I'm going to the Blazer game versus the Spurs, spending time with my best friend. Thursday on Thanksgiving, we will be doing that late game between, the Bengals and the Ravens, I believe. We'll do that. Friday, we'll do the Bears and the Eagles. Saturday, Ducks and the Huskies. And then Sunday Night Football, and then Monday Night Football, like we normally do. So, again, congratulations to the Rams. Prayers up to Baker Mayfield and all the other fucking injured players for the Buccaneers. I mean, this is not who we are. Losing 34-7. This is our biggest loss of the year. And again, I hope that we can, find a way to come together as a team. But again, appreciate everyone coming through. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. Appreciate you guys. And I got one question for you. Who talk sports like us? Your boy Ryan, Northwest Sports Fanatics. Final score, Rams 34, Buccaneers 7. And shout out to all the people that ended up supporting Megan, Reflect, Dave, Dank, and Sarah. Appreciate you guys. TJ helping out with the likes as well. And we will be live tomorrow for the Panthers and the Niners. Really looking forward to that matchup as well. So love you guys, and I appreciate you guys. And I got one question for you. Who talk sports like us? Your boy Ryan, Northwest Sports Fanatics, and I'm out. Gang.